Chapter 14:05. The expression of the 100 transformations. Star Sovereign kept changing. Now that he controlled most of the upper echelons, he had great power and limitless glory. As for his true identity, no one doubted it. After all, he had used the soul-searching technique on the chief and did not miss a single detail. If he could even disguise the details, who would doubt his identity? The Yen family is no longer a concern. Ji Wuxiang will not let them go. Another thing, didn't the news from the West say that there was a strange phenomenon? How's the investigation going? The 100 transformations. Star Sovereign asked again. This time, we encountered a problem. Those witnesses were all killed and died miserably, so we don't know what happened at that time. What? They're all dead? The 100 transformations. Star Sovereign said in surprise. I'm afraid it was done by the demon clan, afraid that others would know the details. This matter must be extraordinary, which is why the demon clan is mobilizing so many people. What exactly is going on? The 100 transformations. Star Sovereign narrowed his eyes, deep in thought, but he couldn't figure it out. Ji Wuxiang and Qi will definitely have a large-scale conflict. After all, the demon clan is taking revenge, surrounding and annihilating the martial warriors everywhere. What should we do? The 100 transformations. Star Sovereign snorted and said, back then, I really underestimated Ji Wuxiang. He actually modified the martial warriors and activated the power of the stars. If he is allowed to grow stronger, he will definitely become a huge problem in the future. The 100 transformations. Star Sovereign was still a cultivator in his bones. He was filled with hatred towards Ji Wuxiang for changing the martial warriors and the situation of the world. Then let's set up a plan in advance and take precautions. The 100 transformations. Star Sovereign nodded. Of course I know. Let me think about how to provoke the two sides to fight to the death so that I can sit back and reap the benefits. In the villa's underground training room, Yan Patian was bewildered. He chose to believe in Feng Shishir and returned. He did not know what her intentions were. When he stepped into the training room, under the light, he immediately saw a familiar figure. This figure was very tall and straight, like a sword. Yan Patian's heart skipped a beat as he opened his eyes wide. He looked at the figure in disbelief and said, This. Tang Zheng slowly turned around, and the two of them immediately looked at each other. Yan Patian was so excited that he almost had a heart attack. Young Master Tang, you're still alive. Yan Patian took a deep breath and finally recovered. Tang Zheng looked at him with a smile, nodded, and said, Elder Yan, I'm sorry for keeping this from you. Yan Patian was truly shocked. He originally did not believe the news of Tang Zheng's death. After all, Yan Qingyi had once said that he was the savior. However, after a long time had passed, he did not appear, and all signs indicated that he was indeed no longer in this world. He had no choice but to accept this reality. But now he saw Tang Zheng standing in front of him, alive and well. How could he remain calm? It was absolutely impossible for someone to pretend to be Tang Zheng and calm his mind. Tang Zheng was not someone who could be easily impersonated. His temperament and manner of speech could not be disguised at all. It doesn't matter. As long as young Master Tang is alive, it's a great thing. I'm really too happy. Yan Patian was so excited that his eyes turned red, and he lost his composure. I'm sorry, I lost my composure. I am indeed too happy. Yan Patian wiped the corner of his eyes and sighed. Tang Zheng understood his feelings and said, I understand. Elder Yan, thank you for always believing in us and believing in Tian Chanzi. As soon as he finished speaking, Tian Chanzi walked out from the darkness. Yan Patian laughed without caring in the slightest. Now that the situation is so chaotic, if I don't believe you, who else can I believe? Although his words were somewhat helpless, his persistent trust was moving. Since young Master Tang is back, then we will have a backbone. Everything will be easy. The stone hanging in Yen Potion's heart fell to the ground as he said with relief, Elder Yen, you flatter me. How can I be the backbone of the group? Yen Patian said seriously. Other than you, who else can do it? Tang Zheng smiled bitterly and did not dwell on this question, and said, Elder Yen, I know your current predicament. You are worried that Ji Wuxiang will harm the Yen family. You can rest assured that with me here, I will definitely not let the Yen family be harmed. Tang Zheng's words were firm and unquestionable. Yen Patian nodded his head heavily. He did not question him at all, but unconditionally believed him, and said, with young Master Tang's words, it is enough. Of course, what we have to do is not only that. We can't just passively take a beating. We have to take the initiative to attack. Tang Zheng changed the topic and said, take the initiative to attack. What wise ideas does young Master Tang have? Yen Patian looked at him curiously. Not only that, the others also looked at Tang Zheng curiously. After careful consideration, Tang Zheng knew that a war would definitely break out between Ji Wuxiang and Qiyu, but he had to speed up all of this so that the flames of war would burn even faster and even more fiercely. We are going to attack Ji Wuxiang's troops, Tang Zheng said casually, but his words were like a heavy bomb exploding with a loud bang. Everyone looked at him in shock. This was an extremely risky move. Ji Wuxiang was no longer the same as before. He would definitely defend himself to the death. If they were to attack him, it would definitely be an extremely risky move. Tian Chanzi directly said, it's too risky, we can't. Fang Shishir and the others also nodded, unwilling to let Tang Zheng take any more risks and suffer any losses. Tang Zheng understood their feelings, but still persisted. I know everyone's feelings, but we have to do this. Otherwise, we won't be able to completely ignite the flames of war between Ji Wuxiang and Qiyu. Right now, no matter which side they are on, they are all powerful and cannot be underestimated. We have to avoid direct contact with them as much as possible. Seeing that Tang Zheng had already made up his mind, everyone knew that it was useless to persuade him, and all of them had worried expressions. All of you are in the open, so there's no way for you to carry out this mission. Only a dead person, like me, is the most suitable candidate. They won't suspect me. Tang Zheng added, although everyone was worried about his safety, if they thought about it carefully, this was indeed a good idea. Furthermore, I am no longer the same as before. How can an ordinary person hurt me? I am at the second stage of the Mahayana stage. Tang Zheng said confidently. Yen Patian turned pale with fright and muttered to himself, second stage of the Mahayana stage? That was a realm that he did not even dare to hope for. Stars appeared in his eyes as he stared at Tang Zheng like a fan looking at a celebrity. This is a coincidence. Everyone will reach this realm in the future. Tang Zheng comforted. Yen Patian laughed bitterly. How could it be that easy to reach the second stage of the Mahayana stage? To martial warriors, that was the martial emperor realm. Tang Zheng looked deeply at Yen Patian. He still had one more thing in his heart that he did not make clear. He wanted to investigate the truth of the Azure Dragon Palace. And the most important thing was to find out how Ji Wuxiang had transformed the martial warriors. If he could know the mystery behind it, and if he was very familiar with heavenly chess, it was completely possible for him to replicate Ji Wuxiang's success. He also had many martial warriors by his side, so he could completely follow the instructions and transform the martial warriors by his side. At that time, the originally weak martial warriors would also erupt with great power. The two sides secretly discussed for a while, and Yen Patian carefully left with a belly full of thoughts. Tang Zheng decided to stay for the night and let the four symbols venerable see everyone. They were all surprised by his change. Since he had seen Yen Pa Tian, Tang Zheng might as well see the witch clan elder. When the elder saw the living Tang Zheng, his reaction was huge, and he immediately burst into tears. During the period of time when Tang Zheng was dead, the spirit of the entire witch clan seemed to have been sucked away, and anyone who saw it would be moved. Tang Zheng could not bear for them to be kept in the dark. Moreover, he had another goal. The four symbols were the guardians of the witch clan. He wanted to ask the elders if they knew more about the four symbols. When the elder saw the four symbols that had transformed into humans, his reaction was even greater than that of Tang Zheng. He was extremely shocked, and naturally, he did not have any extra information to provide to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had no choice but to give up. In the dead of night, he sat alone in the training room. All the girls knew that he was about to face a very dangerous journey, so they didn't disturb him. They wanted him to conserve his energy and be in his best condition to face the possible danger. Tang Zheng might as well immerse his mind in the heaven realm. The martial warriors that the black hole had absorbed a few days ago had turned into strands of life force and appeared in the heaven realm. When Tang Zheng saw this life force, he couldn't help but think of the words of the four symbols regarding the creation of the world. This world had already been successfully established, but what was lacking the most was the process of creation. This was the most difficult part. At the same time, he had a new understanding of space. In the past, he had mistakenly thought that the Sumeru world and the Sumeru ring were two different spatial worlds. In fact, he was ridiculously wrong. That could not be considered a world at all, but a warehouse. A true spatial world was a world like the heaven realm that could create things. The Sumeru world's level was much higher than ordinary Sumeru ring, but it was impossible to create things. It could only store things. There was an essential difference. He did not tell others about the heaven realm. This seemed too shocking. Before he figured it out, it could not be considered public knowledge. There were countless big worlds and small worlds in the universe. Who was the one who created these worlds? Who was the creator? Such a question arose in his heart, but he could not find the answer at all. Now, he was also a creator, so he could not help but want to explore the secrets. However, he could only slowly explore this by himself. No one else could help him at all. From the words of Tian Chanzi and the Empyrean fairy, they had never mentioned this matter. They did not know that people could also be creators. He was not in a hurry to use the strands of life force. His mind withdrew from the heaven realm and entered the Sumeru world. Azura was still quietly staying in place like a statue. Not far away was Mo Xia. He noticed Tang Zheng's consciousness and immediately asked, "Tang Zheng, what is Tian Chanzi's decision?" Mo Xia had always wanted to check whether Tian Chanzi still had the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor in his body, but Tian Chanzi did not give him the chance. "How much time has it been? What's the hurry?" Tang Zheng said lazily. People under the eaves, Mo Xia had no choice but to shut his mouth resentfully. Tang Zheng patrolled around the Sumeru world. This was very different from the heaven realm. In the heaven realm, he did not need to deliberately patrol. Everything was like a movie, clearly displayed in his mind. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. The hair was like steel needles pricking his flesh painfully. This feeling only lasted for a second, and the needle-like hair actually softened, becoming as soft as feathers. Tang Zheng didn't feel any discomfort at all. He was shocked. Xiao Bai's change was so big that even its hair had changed so much. Tang Zheng looked at him in shock and exclaimed, "Xiao Bai, your transformation is too big." The corners of Xiao Bai's mouth curled up as he said, happily, "This is all thanks to Master. Those dragon souls are really too powerful. They actually allowed me to awaken." Awaken? Tang Zheng was stunned, not knowing what it meant. Xiao Bai didn't hide it and quickly explained, I didn't know my past and origin because I wasn't an adult, so the imprint of my ancestors in my blood hadn't awakened. Xiao Bai couldn't hide the emotion in his voice. Awakening is not an easy thing. Other than one's own strength, one also needs a huge amount of energy as a source of power. The energy I accumulated bit by bit, and the dragon soul's energy stimulated all of this, as if a lock was unlocked. The memories of my people rushed into my brain like a tide, testing my nerves with difficulty. Xiao Bai said slowly, but every word was like thunder exploding in Tang Zheng's ears. Xiao Bai had awakened and found out about his past. This was like the beginning of fate. It was no longer Xiao Bai, but the king of the sky beyond sky. If Scarlet Lunar saw this scene, it would be very excited. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that its eyes would be filled with tears. Tang Zheng was also very excited. His heart was beating fast, and his emotions were fluctuating. Xiao Bai, what did you remember? After a while, Tang Zheng finally couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked, This isn't just remembering, it's passing down from generation to generation. Of course, it's not just memories, but also responsibility and glory. Xiao Bai changed his tone and said seriously. Tang Zheng's heart thumped, and he nodded heavily. Xiao Bai continued, The Sky Beyond Sky clan has always been the ruler of the Sky Beyond Sky. This is the glory passed down from generation to generation, and it can't be tarnished. But in the end, it was tarnished, and even the glory became a joke. This is a great humiliation. Now that I'm the only one left, I want to wash away this humiliation. I want to return to the sky beyond sky and lead my people to destroy the earthlings. I want to restore the sky beyond sky to its former glory. Tang Zheng's emotions surged, and he asked, You want to bring people back to the sky beyond sky? But the enemy has a lot of people. Even the cultivators who were expelled couldn't get any benefits. You might not succeed. Tang Zheng spoke frankly. He was not afraid of Xiao Bai being angry at all. This was because these were his words from the bottom of his heart. If he didn't say it, then no one else would. Chapter 1407. Xiao Bai's words were earth-shattering and deeply shocked Tang Zheng. The sky beyond heaven was not unreachable and could be reached at any time. How was this possible? In Tang Zheng's impression, the sky beyond heaven was always unreachable, and the only way to reach it was through the Buzhou Mountain's stairway to heaven. After Xiao Bai awakened, could it be that it could break through the spatial isolation between the two worlds? This was truly inconceivable. Seeing that Tang Zheng was silent, Xiao Bai excitedly said, Master, are you very happy? Tang Zheng did not comment. Xiao Bai, how do I go to the sky beyond heaven? Xiao Bai raised its head and proudly said, Master, you also know that the spatial isolation between the two worlds has become very weak, and after I absorbed the dragon soul, I gained a certain divine ability of the dragon clan. That is the divine ability to travel through space. Divine ability to travel through space? Tang Zheng was shocked. Yes, the dragon clan is very talented in traveling through space, and my clan is also very talented in this area. After I absorbed the dragon soul promoted the evolution of this divine ability. Xiao Bai explained. Tang Zheng was enlightened, but his heart trembled. The dragon clan had the divine ability to travel through space. This was not difficult to understand, as it could be seen from the dragon clan's ability to travel through space. In addition, dragon slayers could also travel through space. Perhaps it was because they absorbed the dragon soul that they gained this divine ability. Tang Zheng was suspicious. Didn't I also absorb the dragon soul? Why don't I have the divine ability to travel through space? Maybe it's because my cultivation isn't deep enough. Tang Zheng had always wanted to explore the secrets of the sky beyond heaven. Since he could go to the sky beyond heaven without using the stairway to heaven, he naturally would not miss this good opportunity. He hurriedly asked, "Xiao Bai, since you can travel to the sky beyond heaven, why don't we go explore it?" Xiao Bai heard this and hesitated. Tang Zheng looked at it in surprise and asked, "What's wrong?" "Master, I can cross over to the heavens beyond heaven, but only my consciousness can cross over. My body can't cross over yet." Xiao Bai stammered. "What? Divine sense transmigration?" Tang Zheng was taken aback. He never thought that there was such a thing as divine sense transmigration. Xiao Bai said embarrassedly, "Yes, this is because my cultivation is still not enough. If my cultivation increased greatly, I would definitely be able to open the spatial door and let my body pass through." Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was really a roller coaster ride, going up and down for a while. It was extremely exciting. "Master, although there's no way to go to the heavens beyond heaven physically, wouldn't it be safer to use one's consciousness to go there? After all, it's too dangerous there." Xiao Bai had an idea and spoke from another perspective. Tang Zheng was slightly startled, but he had to nod and admit that what it said made sense. "Then let's go to heavens beyond now," Xiao Bai said impatiently. "Us?" Tang Zheng was taken aback. Could it be that divine sense transmigration can also bring other people along? "Of course, my cultivation can temporarily bring one person at a time." Xiao Bai nodded and said. Tang Zheng's heart thumped. Divine sense transmigration could also allow one to experience the wonders and power of the heavens beyond heaven. How could he miss out on such a great opportunity? He nodded heavily and said excitedly, "That's good. There's no time to lose. We'll set off immediately." Xiao Bai almost cheered in joy and said, "Then I must leave Sumi Tian first." Tang Zheng's thoughts moved. Xiao Bai left Sumi Tian and appeared in front of Tang Zheng. Xiao Bai's body was huge. He reached out his claws and pulled Tang Zheng's hand. Tang Zheng moved his head and let him pull, his eyes filled with anticipation. Shua! A fiery red ray of light shot out from the horn on Whitey's forehead. The air surged and ripples spread out in all directions. A crack was torn in the air, constantly expanding in both directions. Behind the crack was pitch black, and nothing could be seen. "This is the spatial gate?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. "Yes, but right now my cultivation is too weak. I can barely maintain the spatial gate. There's no way for physical objects to pass through the spatial gate. I can only use divine sense," Xiao Bai explained. "But if divine sense leaves the body for too long, won't it affect the body?" Usually, Tang Zheng's divine sense couldn't leave the body for too long, so he had this question. Xiao Bai smiled confidently. "That's in this space. Your divine sense won't be affected by this when it travels to another space." "Is that so?" Tang Zheng was skeptical. But since Xiao Bai was so confident, then of course he would choose to believe it. "Master, use your divine sense to enter the spatial gate with me," Xiao Bai said. The man and the beast seemed to have turned into puppets. They didn't move, and even their eyes didn't blink. Two divine senses floated out of their bodies and flew into the spatial gate. With a schwa, the spatial gate disappeared again. The air calmed down as if nothing had happened, but the two divine senses passed through the dark spatial gate. Darkness filled his eyes. Tang Zheng was full of curiosity. However, he couldn't detect the situation around him. Suddenly, another spatial gate appeared in front of him. They disappeared into the darkness with a whoosh. His eyes suddenly opened up and became incomparably bright. A fiery red color appeared in front of him. This fiery red color was like balls of flames, swaying with the wind. It was incomparably enchanting. Chapter 14:08. Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. If Kingsman was destroyed, Tian Chanzi would definitely be extremely sad. Judging from Tian Chanzi's daily words and deeds, he had deep feelings for his sect. Naturally, he could not sit back and do nothing. Otherwise, it would become a big regret in his heart. Xiao Bai saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts and asked, "You want to help them?" "Yes, this is Tian Chanzi's sect. I can't just stand by and watch them die. Do you have a way?" Tang Zheng asked expectantly. "It's not that there's no way at all, but we're divine senses. We can't really attack the enemy," Xiao Bai said awkwardly. "If we can't really attack, then how can we help them?" Tang Zheng asked suspiciously. Xiao Bai laughed. "Master, we can scare those traitors away." "Scare them away?" Tang Zheng thought for a moment and immediately understood Xiao Bai's intention. This was purely to scare people. But would those people be scared away? "Master, after all, I'm a former royal of this world. This is my world, so I can cleverly use some of the laws of the Outland, such as this." As soon as he finished speaking, the sky became gloomy. It was daytime, but suddenly it became dark as if night had fallen. The two sides who were fighting found themselves in a dark world. They subconsciously stopped fighting and looked up at the sky. The sky was dark, and there was not even a trace of light. Whoosh! The light soared into the sky, and everyone immediately activated their magic weapons. The colorful light illuminated the world, and they could see each other clearly. But both sides very tacitly stopped fighting and looked at each other. They did not understand what was going on, and they suspected that it was the other side's trick. When Tang Zheng saw this scene, he was overjoyed. This was all thanks to Little White, but if he wanted to scare the enemy away, he was still lacking a little. "Master, now it's up to you. You have to scare them away by talking," Xiao Bai reminded. "Talk. We're divine senses. Can we talk?" Tang Zheng was surprised. "Don't you still have me?" "I used my divine ability so you can naturally speak," Xiao Bai said mysteriously. Tang Zheng no longer hesitated. After mulling it over for a moment, his voice resonated like a great bell. "Traitors, you'd better surrender and accept your punishment. How dare you stir up trouble again? How presumptuous!" This voice was even louder than thunder, clearly entering everyone's ears, shaking their minds. Both parties were startled. They looked around and looked up at the sky, but they couldn't find a single trace. They were shocked. Who was this? He came without a trace and created a huge commotion, yet no one could discover his whereabouts. The only explanation was that his strength was ridiculously high. Kingsman was secretly delighted. They seemed to understand that this person was targeting the enemy, not them. This so-called traitor was definitely not them. Xiao Bai said shamefully, "Master, in the end, in order to scare away those traitors, I used up too much of my divine power. In the end, I couldn't do it, so I had to come back in time. Otherwise, I would have stayed in that world forever." Tang Zheng was stunned. He knew that the situation was very dangerous. It was also very risky for him to use his divine power to scare away the enemy. "Xiao Bai, thank you." Xiao Bai grinned. "Master, this is what I should do. In the future, we will definitely return to the heavens beyond. The people of Kingsman will not be in danger under our protection." Tang Zheng smiled and patted his head. "You are very thoughtful. When Xiao Bai recovers, I will take you to the heavens beyond. Then we will be able to find out more about the heavens beyond," Xiao Bai said. "There is no hurry. We have other things to do." Tang Zheng did not mind. Xiao Bai asked excitedly, "What is it?" "We are going to Dianan to find out Ji Wuxiang's secret." "Wow, this is fun. I always thought that Ji Wuxiang was not a good person. It is true." Xiao Bai gritted his teeth and rubbed his hands. "Master, don't worry. We will find out everything about him and punish him severely." Xiao Bai, Ji Wuxiang is not the same as before. You must not act recklessly. You understand? Tang Zheng warned. Xiao Bai blinked and said wittily, Master, don't worry. I will listen to your orders. The sky was bright. The two of them left quietly. They walked under the morning light and headed towards Dianan. No one noticed their whereabouts. However, there was one thing that they did not expect. In the heavens beyond, Tang Zheng's words caused a huge uproar. The news spread all over the heavens beyond through various channels. Suddenly, the heavens beyond was in an uproar. Many people were ready to make a move. For a long time, the rumors about the royal family had never stopped. It was true, but many people were skeptical. However, it was different this time. The rumors were true. The royal family was not completely wiped out. Chapter 1409. At noon, Dianan was still sunny, while Yanjing in the north was already cool in autumn. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai stood on the somersault cloud and looked down at Dianan. There were many dangerous roads in Dianan, and the scenery was beautiful. Looking down from the sky, it was like a pearl on the land of Huaxia. However, now this pearl was full of danger, and no one dared to underestimate it. In order to provoke the conflict between Qi Yu and Ji Wuxiang, Tang Zheng naturally could not show his true face. Therefore, he patted Xiao Bai's head, and a ball of light appeared on his face. In the next second, he changed into another appearance. Xiao Bai, go to Sumeru World for a while. Xiao Bai raised his head, looked at this strange master, and reluctantly returned to Sumeru World. Tang Zheng touched his cheek. This was a familiar face, Song Yu. Qi Yu occupied Song Yu's body, and Tang Zheng became Song Yu. Naturally, he was Qi Yu's current appearance. With this new appearance, Ji Wuxiang would treat him as Qi Yu. The somersault cloud landed silently in a secluded area, and he swaggered into the city. The Long family in Dianan had surrendered to Ji Wuxiang. Of course, he could only use the Long family as a breakthrough. He believed that Ji Wuxiang would definitely show up. He had been to the Long family more than once, and he was familiar with the way to the Long family's huge manor. Compared to before, this manor was bigger than before. Obviously, with the help of Ji Wuxiang, the Long family was dominant and powerful. They were the real local emperors of Dianan. The Long family manor was heavily guarded. When he was still more than 100 meters away, he was stopped by two people. This is not a place you should be. Go back. The guard treated him as a passerby who had taken the wrong way. Tang Zheng smiled slightly. Since he was here to make trouble, he naturally had to make a big fuss. He didn't seem to move at all as he continued to walk forward. The two guards were sent flying, as if they had been struck by gravity. The air seemed to have solidified, and everything became extremely slow. After Tang Zheng walked past them, they fell heavily to the ground and couldn't get up again. The commotion here immediately attracted the attention of others. Dozens of people rushed out of the manor, each of them burly and strong. They were obviously martial artists. However, in Tang Zheng's eyes, they were still not enough to attract his attention. He took large strides forward. It seemed like a small step, but in reality, he took a big step forward. He covered a distance of 2 meters. In the blink of an eye, he was at the entrance of the manor. The people who had rushed up were all sent flying and slammed into the door. The door fell down with a loud bang and smashed into the ground, causing dust to fly up into the sky. He strolled through the door as if he was returning home, strolling leisurely. In the eyes of others, this place was like a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, but in his eyes, it was like a walk in a park. He didn't even make a move, and his invisible attack caused the invaders' attacks to disintegrate into nothingness. When he walked into the manor and saw more warriors, he was even more certain that after Long Xianyuan submitted to Ji Wuxiang, the Long family had become an important stronghold of the Azure Dragon Palace. Long Xianyuan had made the right move and strengthened the Long family. It was a pity that his son didn't have half of his vision and ability back then. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died so early. He sighed slightly and walked towards the main building. Although the manor was large, one could tell at a glance where the main building was. This was because the scale and grandeur of the manor were far from what other buildings could compare to. Many warriors rushed over from all directions. He suddenly sped up and passed through the crowd like a gust of wind. Everywhere he passed, everyone fell to the ground in disarray, looking battered and exhausted. Bang! With a muffled sound, a person flew out of the main building and landed heavily on the ground. The moment his feet landed on the ground, the earth seemed to tremble. Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes and looked at the other party curiously. Long Xianyuan had the demeanor of an immortal. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and his beard and hair were all white. However, in Tang Zheng's eyes, he wasn't tall at all. He could clearly feel the change in Long Xuanyuan's strength. Ji Wuxiang was indeed powerful, causing Long Xianyuan to undergo such an earth-shattering change. He didn't know how he did it. One of the purposes of his trip was to find out how Ji Wuxiang did it. Although Long Xianyuan had already been transformed, he probably only knew how and not why, but he could still ask for some clues. Song Yu, Long Xianyuan blurted out. His expression suddenly changed. He immediately realized something and changed his words. You are not Song Yu, you are Qi Yu. Obviously, Ji Wuxiang also knew that Qi Yu had taken over Song Yu's body. Tang Zheng's face was cold, and he said arrogantly, Long Xianyuan, you are not qualified to speak to me, called Ji Wuxiang out. How dare you call the High Lord by his name? Long Xianyuan was furious. Tang Zheng said disdainfully, Ji Wuxiang, an insignificant person, what's so important about his name? After pausing for a moment, he continued to mock, Long Xianyuan, you have become Ji Wuxiang's lackey, which means you are my enemy. If he doesn't appear, then the one who will be unlucky can only be you. Before he finished speaking, Tang Zheng made his move. He extended his hand and grabbed towards Long Xianyuan. In order to hide his divine ability, he deliberately did not use the heaven-swallowing technique, but used a common divine ability. After all, this was the feeling of being able to hold one's head high. Tang Zheng was not moved, and said indifferently, I will kill Ji Wuxiang and let you all understand the true difference between cultivators and martial artists. That is just your beautiful, extravagant hope. Reality is much crueler than you think. If you want to kill me, then come. I will not give in. No martial artist will give in to you cultivators. Long Xianyuan puffed out his chest and said loudly. Tang Zheng did not waste any more words. With a grab of his hand, another tornado that was like an angry dragon appeared. The air from all directions gathered towards his palm. Whoosh! The tornado quickly flew towards Long Xianyuan. Long Xianyuan shook his spear. There were no fancy moves, no spear flowers. Only the cold light of the spear pierced towards the tornado. This move of returning to one's original state was an extremely difficult realm for martial artists to reach. However, Long Xianyuan was no longer the same as before, and this move was extremely skillful. In the blink of an eye, the spear left his hand and pierced into the tornado. In an instant, the spear split into two into four, and actually turned into many, stirring up the tornado. Boom! The tornado disappeared, and the spear stopped in midair. The wind was calm, as if the spear had won. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up into an unfathomable smile. With a flick of his finger, a strong wind blew against the spear. Ka ka ka. The spear cracked inch by inch and turned into fine powder. It drifted away with the wind and disappeared without a trace. Puff! Long Xianyuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as a sheet. His breathing was chaotic as he coughed nonstop. Now you know who's stronger, Tang Zheng said indifferently. Long Xianyuan said, so what if you're strong? If you're unpopular, the final victor will definitely belong to the Lord. Humph! Does Ji Wuxiang have the support of the people? In this world, whoever has the biggest fist is the truth. Tang Zheng raised his fist and said fiercely. However, Long Xianyuan raised his head high. These words did not convince him. I don't need to convince you. Those who don't believe in these words will eventually be eliminated. It's only a matter of time. After Tang Zheng finished speaking, he grabbed with his hand and sucked Long Xianyuan into his hand. Long Xianyuan didn't even have the chance to cry out before his neck was grabbed by Tang Zheng. He really wanted to use the soul-searching technique so that the secrets in Long Xianyuan's brain would be exposed. However, this might turn Long Xianyuan into an idiot. After all, he was Nana's grandfather, and Tang Zheng didn't want to do such a thing. He rolled his eyes and had an idea. He smiled evilly and said, Tell Ji Wuxiang that I won't let him and the people around him off. I will kill them one by one and let them know how powerful I, Qiyu, am. This world will belong to me, Qiyu, alone. He loosened his grip and sent it forward again. With a bang, he slapped Long Xianyuan's chest. True qi flowed through his 8 extraordinary meridians towards his dantian. Boom! Chapter 14:10. Long Xianyuan was stunned, as if he didn't understand what was going on. But he immediately came to a realization. His dantian had collapsed. For a martial artist, this was equivalent to taking his life. Long Xianyuan had been practicing martial arts since he was young and had been practicing martial arts for most of his life. Martial arts was an indispensable part of his life. Martial arts gave him glory, dignity, and power. In fact, everything he had was closely related to martial arts. But now that his dantian had shattered, from today onwards, his martial arts would no longer exist. He was in despair. 2 huge tears flowed out of his eyes, and then the tears formed a line and fell down like raindrops. Tang Zheng looked at this scene without the slightest bit of guilt. Long Xianyuan was his enemy. If Long Xianyuan had the chance to kill him, he would definitely not be lenient. If it weren't for Mu Hongyan and Nana, he wouldn't have been merciful. Therefore, he was already very merciful. Ha ha, Long Xianyuan, isn't this feeling very bad? That's right, this is the result of going against me. Qiyu, I want you to live a life worse than death. Tang Zheng deliberately laughed wildly. He was now Qiyu, so of course he couldn't comfort him. Instead, he had to do his best to attack him and humiliate him. Only in this way would he have the motivation to live on. Otherwise, he might not be able to survive this heavy blow. Long Xianyuan didn't know about Tang Zheng's good intentions. He only glared at him fiercely, his eyes bloodshot, and said while gnashing his teeth, Qiyu, you're so ruthless. Tang Zheng deliberately laughed. Hate me? Then hate me, but unfortunately, you will never have the chance to take revenge. Obediently report to your master, Ji Wuxiang, and then you will have completed your destiny. At that time, you can die. Die. This was like a heavy hammer that ruthlessly struck his heart. Just now, he felt like he was better off dead. But now, he suddenly felt lucky that he was not dead. Otherwise, wouldn't he have fulfilled Qiyu's wish? I can't die. I have to live on. Although I am no longer a warrior, I want to see the day when Qiyu is defeated by the High Lord. I want to see his destruction. Long Xianyuan silently made up his mind. He didn't have the slightest thought of dying. Tang Zheng saw him, gnashing his teeth, and guessed what he was thinking. Instantly, he relaxed in his heart. He had done all he could, and if he still wanted to die, then he couldn't blame himself. There was no need to stay here any longer. He looked at Long Xianyuan coldly and laughed arrogantly. Tell Ji Wuxiang, it's useless for him to be a coward. I will catch him even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground. I will kill all of you warriors. After he finished speaking, he slowly rose into the air. He did not put these people in his eyes at all. He was extremely arrogant. He disappeared in midair, and the pressure suddenly disappeared. However, the boulder that was pressing on their hearts did not weaken at all. Long Xianyuan staggered out. Some of his subordinates came to help him, but he was pushed away. However, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. His hair was disheveled, and he was in a sorry state. In this short period of time, he seemed to have aged 10 years, which made people sigh. Everyone's expression was complicated. Their eyes were focused on him, and their hearts were filled with Qi Yen. At the same time, they had the same thought in their hearts. They were not so carefree and aloof. Cultivators were more powerful than they thought. Once they made a move, it was possible for them to live a life worse than death. Long Xianyuan appeared in a secret place and confirmed that no one was following him. Grandma Li looked at him in surprise. She wanted to reach out to help him, but subconsciously stopped. She anxiously asked, "What happened to you?" Long Xuanyuan's mouth hung helplessly and said weakly, "My dantian was destroyed." Grandma Li was shocked. Although she saw that there was no star power in his body and subconsciously stopped, she did not expect his dantian to be destroyed. As a martial artist, she knew very well what this meant. Her expression immediately became gloomy, and she asked sternly, "Who did it?" Long Xianyuan took a deep breath and said the name. "Qiyu." "Qiyu?" Grandma Li exclaimed. Her voice was sharp, and she was greatly shocked. Long Xianyuan looked at her expression and did not say a word. He let her accept this incredible news by herself. After a long while, Grandma Li woke up from her dream and asked, "Qi, you came to Dianan?" "Yes." "Then where is he now?" Grandma Li asked. Long Xianyuan shook his head. "I don't know. His target is the Lord. He wants me to give up the Lord. How can I tell him? He destroyed me. I want to see the Lord kill him." His words were full of hatred. Grandma Li could understand him, nodded, and said, "You did the right thing. The Lord will kill him to avenge you." Long Xianyuan nodded heavily, slightly hesitated, and said, "Where is the Lord? I want to see him." Grandma Li hesitated for a moment and said, "The Lord went out to do something and has not returned yet." Long Xianyuan lowered his head in disappointment and said weakly, "If the Lord comes back, please let him see me." "Of course. Then I'll take my leave first." Long Xianyuan bade farewell, turned around, and walked out like an old man on his deathbed. In the past, he had a divine power and was full of spirit, more powerful than young people. Now that he had no power, he was like an old man, even slightly inferior. Watching Long Xianyuan walk away, Grandma Li's eyes gradually became cold. If Long Xianyuan saw this look, he would understand more. Granny Li came to a more secretive place and said respectfully, "My lord, I let Long Xianyuan go." In the darkness, Ji Wuxiang walked out, expressionless, and no one could see his heart. He nodded slightly and said indifferently, "I already know. Qi, you came to Dianan and directly challenged me." Grandma Li said angrily, "Qi, you went too far, daring to come to Dianan. We can't let him go on like this." Ji Wuxiang didn't answer and muttered, "Qiyu, why did you destroy Long Xuanyuan's dantian?" Huh! Grandma Li was stunned. She didn't understand why the Lord was entangled with this question. She said naturally, "This is more cruel than killing a martial artist. Of course it is to torture him." Ji Wuxiang didn't speak. Grandma Li's heart trembled, realizing that things were far from as simple as she thought. Her expression became dignified, and she asked nervously, "Lord, is there a problem?" The Lord pondered for a long time. His calm expression didn't reveal his thoughts. The atmosphere was so quiet and oppressive that Grandma Li's breathing couldn't help but quicken. If it was someone else, they would have been scared to the ground. Only Grandma Li could hold on. Chapter 14:11. Granny Li suspiciously looked at the mysterious smile on Ji Wuxiang's face and asked curiously, "My lord, is there really a problem?" Ji Wuxiang looked at Granny Li with a smile that was not a smile and said, "Don't you think that Chi Yu's behavior is very strange?" Strange? Granny Li was at a loss. When did Chi Yu become so benevolent? Is he benevolent? Granny Li was in disbelief. He destroyed Long Xuanyuan's Dantian, which is crueler than killing him. Where is the benevolence? Ji Wuxiang chuckled and said, "Is this considered cruel? Let me tell you, the most miserable person is killing someone. As long as one's life is left, there is a chance to make a comeback. Chi Yu should understand this principle." If Chi Yu heard this, he would definitely give a thumbs up and praise Ji Wuxiang for understanding him. Killing a person is the most effective way to strike, but also the cruelest way, crueler than any other method. Granny Li thought for a while and had to admit that Ji Wuxiang's words were reasonable. Suddenly, a question arose in her heart. Since Chi Yu knows this principle, why didn't he kill Long Xuanyuan? Ji Wuxiang laughed and said meaningfully, "This is where Chi Yu's cleverness lies. Killing Long Xuanyuan is indeed a counterattack, but that's just child's play. Only this way is more in line with his identity. He is confident that he is the strongest person in the world, so he used this method to tell me that he is not afraid of any revenge. Even if Long Xuanyuan can make a comeback, he will not put him in his eyes." After a pause, Ji Wuxiang took a deep breath and said, "This is the method of a proud person. If you judge with common sense, there is no way to understand his deep meaning." Granny Li suddenly realized and said angrily, "Not only is he counterattacking, he is also insulting us. He does not put us in his eyes at all." Ji Wuxiang nodded in relief. "It's good that you understand this point. An arrogant army is bound to be defeated. Chi Yu is bound to lose. His death date is not far away." Granny Li hatefully said. Ji Wuxiang shook his head. "Wrong. An arrogant army is bound to be defeated. That is for those without strength. If one is strong enough, no matter how arrogant they will definitely win." Huh. Granny Li was stunned. She seemed to be shocked by Ji Wuxiang's theory, but after thinking about it carefully, she found that it was indeed the case. A person who was extremely powerful, no matter how arrogant he was, would never be defeated by his enemies. This was because in front of absolute power, everything else was worthless. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "But has Chi Yu really reached that level?" Ji Wuxiang smiled. "He thinks he's done it." How arrogant! This word was used very well, perfectly explaining Ji Wuxiang's point of view. Granny Li naturally understood and smiled as if relieved of a burden. Lord has heavenly chess. His power is boundless. Chi Yu thinks he is invincible, but he is really stupid. He will definitely be defeated by Lord. Ji Wuxiang declined to comment and said, "Chi Yu came with great momentum. He will not let this matter go. He will definitely take action. Send someone down and find his whereabouts. I want to properly deal with him." Yes. Granny Li's eyes lit up. She clenched her teeth, looking forward to Lord's display of power. Ever since Ji Wuxiang had completely transformed and achieved great success, she had never seen him take action. The battle between him and Qi Yu was bound to be earth-shattering. This battle would also determine the situation of the world. When this battle ended, the victory and defeat of the world would be determined. If Tang Zheng knew about Ji Wuxiang's analysis, he would definitely be dumbfounded. He did not have such complicated thoughts. It was only because of Mu Hongyan and Nana that he let Long Xianyuan live. This was simply an unexpected surprise. It was like a sharp steel needle piercing into Ji Wuxiang's heart. Ji Wuxiang was also an absolutely proud person. He would not allow the existence of another proud person. This was a provocation to him. He would not tolerate it. After Tang Zheng flew into the sky, he saw Long Xianyuan sneakily leaving the manor. He chased him all the way, but he did not expect to be shaken off. After all, he was not a local snake and was not familiar with Dianan. Long Xianyuan had lived here all his life, like a fish in water. Even if he did not have martial arts, he was like a slippery loach. Tang Zheng was not discouraged. After searching for a long time, he finally found Long Xianyuan. Seeing that he was dejected, it was as if his spirit had been sucked away. Long Xianyuan walked in the direction of his home. Tang Zheng did not chase after him. Instead, he looked around and pondered. Ji Wuxiang's lair must be in this area. Long Xianyuan went there just now, but he hid it too well. Although he could be sure of this, it was not easy to find Ji Wuxiang in the vast sea of people. The ancients had a method called waiting for rabbits to appear. Although some people call it a stupid method, it is often more reliable. He believed that Long Xianyuan was not the only one in the Azure Dragon Palace, and he was definitely not the only one who came in and out of this place. Therefore, if he waited quietly here, he would be able to see other people coming in and out. Following the vine to find the melon, he would naturally be able to track Ji Wuxiang. Ji Wuxiang was definitely unfathomable, but he also wanted to test his depth and find out how he used the celestial chess to transform the power of the stars. He didn't have to wait too long before he saw a familiar face. It was Granny Li. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. Granny Li had a deep grudge with him. Back then, during the chaos of the martial sect, Wu Junshan had to leave the martial sect because of Granny Li. This was more effective than any drug control. For martial artists, they knew that they could continue to cultivate and become more powerful, but their path was cut off. This was worse than killing them. Therefore, they would always pledge their allegiance to Ji Wuxiang. Brilliant, really brilliant. Tang Zheng secretly cursed. He had to admit that Ji Wuxiang's method was brilliant. Granny Li had already entered the stronghold and disappeared. After a while, she came out again. Apparently, she had arranged everything and was ready to go to the next stronghold. Tang Zheng guessed her purpose, but he did not chase after her. He had figured out the characteristics of the strongholds, which were the power of the stars. Perhaps others would ignore the power of the stars, but he would not. In that case, he would uproot all of Ji Wuxiang's strongholds. This account would naturally be on Qi Yu's head. He did not believe that Ji Wuxiang would be able to hold back. He would definitely be furious and would not give up until he fought with Qi Yu to the death. He took a step forward and quietly appeared in the stronghold, instantly attracting countless gazes. The cultivators immediately realized that these newcomers had ill intentions and attacked without hesitation. Their attacks were clean and efficient, and their killing intent soared. A few minutes later, Tang Zheng walked out of the stronghold. With a rumble, the stronghold collapsed. As for the martial artists inside, they all died. In order to end the battle quickly, Tang Zheng did not hold back at all and directly used the heaven-devouring technique. All the martial artists were sucked into the black hole and turned into wisps of vitality in the heavenly realm. He also used the soul-searching technique, but did not find anything useful. They still did not know the secret of Ji Wuxiang's transformation of martial artists. They also did not know anything about the Azure Dragon Hall's headquarters. Usually, it was Granny Li who came to find them. This was a one-way communication, so Tang Zheng could not find anything. Ji Wuxiang, you cunning fox. You really have taken every conceivable possibility into account. So strong. He raised his head and found the power of the stars still hovering in the air. The corners of his mouth curled up. Wasn't this a free gift? How could he let it go? With a wave of his hand, the power of the stars poured down like a flood, and he absorbed it into his body. Then he wandered around southern Yunnan. As long as the power of the stars was detected, almost all the martial artists were in trouble. Chapter 14:12. Almost all of the strongholds had been destroyed. These cultivators had been recruited by Ji Wuxiang with great difficulty, and there was no lack of notorious bandits among them who had committed heinous crimes. However, Ji Wuxiang didn't care about them. As long as they could be used by him and work for him, he would welcome them with open arms. In fact, only this group of desperados would be willing to serve him without hesitation and kill everywhere. In the end, the matter was exposed. There was a small accident during a surprise attack. A cultivator dialed Granny Li's number, but before he could say a word, he was sucked into a black hole. But it had already been exposed. So how could someone as smart as Granny Li not know that there was a problem? She hurriedly called several bases, but there was no reply. Her face turned gloomy in an instant. She immediately returned to a stronghold as fast as she could, only to find that it had become a pile of rubble. There was no sign of a single cultivator. They're all gone. She was dumbfounded. After a long time, she finally recovered and flew into a rage. It must be Chi-Yu. Besides him, who else would do this? She clenched her teeth and said firmly, I was trying my best to find him, but it turns out that he has already launched an attack on my Azure Dragon Hall. Suddenly, her eyes turned and she exclaimed, That's not right. Why were these strongholds not attacked when I came here? Chi-Yu seems to be following my footsteps. She was smart and immediately understood. She regretted it. He was following me. I was leading the way for him, allowing him to find one stronghold after another. This cruel reality almost drove her crazy. The Azure Dragon Hall had gathered a little bit of wealth with great difficulty, but because of her negligence, it was almost all ruined. It was ridiculous that she had been so determined to catch Chi-Yu. This was a great irony. Chi-Yu, where are you? Come out for this old lady. She roared to the sky, her eyes almost spitting fire as she looked around fiercely. At this moment, she wished she could cut Chi-Yu into pieces and eat him alive. You're looking for me? Suddenly, a voice floated into her ears. Granny Li turned around abruptly. She was shocked, but her eyes immediately locked onto the young face, not far away. It was Song Yu's body and Chi-Yu's soul. Chi-Yu, you finally showed up. Granny Li clenched her teeth and said, fiercely, You called me so urgently. If I didn't come, wouldn't you be disappointed? Tang Zheng said with a fake smile. Granny Li glared at him and said, I was very disappointed that I couldn't kill you with my own hands. Now, I'm not disappointed anymore. With the High Lord's protection, I can finally see you. I can kill you with my own hands. There's no need for the High Lord to do anything. Tang Zheng remained unmoved and said indifferently, You're so confident. Do you really think you can easily kill me? This is Dianan, not your territory. You don't know how powerful Dianan is. Granny Li said, Haha, is that so? Then I'd like to see how powerful Dianan is. Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile. In order to avoid wasting time, Tang Zheng decided to make the first move to gain the upper hand and directly launched an attack. He pressed his hands into the air, and a gust of wind blew and black clouds rolled, immediately trapping Granny Lee. Granny Lee's eyes turned cold as she put away her contempt. She understood that her situation was not as optimistic as she thought it would be, but she would not give up. A cold light flashed in her hand, and the crutch she had been using flew up. A cold light gathered, exuding a terrifying aura. Tang Zheng looked at her curiously, analyzing her strength compared to before. He had to admit that Granny Lee's posture was very powerful. Anyone with a slightly guilty conscience would be directly scared away by this momentum. Killing is not just a matter of having an imposing aura. Tang Zheng curled his lips, and his 10 fingers contracted inward, forming a claw. The gust of wind and black clouds contracted inward, and an invisible pressure directly pressed down on Granny Lee as if to flatten and crush her. This was just an appetizer, and Tang Zheng did not use his full strength. Granny Lee knew the strength of the enemy, so instead, she used her strongest strength to counterattack or kill him in one blow. However, her thinking was too simple. Granny Lee's cultivation was higher than Ji Wuxiang's. She had reached the martial king realm before, and after Ji Wuxiang's transformation, she soared to the sky and directly broke through to the martial emperor realm. From this, it could be seen how powerful her strength was and how terrifying her attacks were. She pointed her crutch forward, and the power of the stars poured out like a flood, hitting the gust of wind and black clouds. It shattered, and the wind swept away the clouds, disappearing without a trace. Kacha! A crack appeared on the crutch, but the crack did not expand. Granny Lee's pupils shrank as she finally realized that she was an opponent of the enemy. Her face immediately changed, and the light on her crutch increased greatly, like a blazing sun. This was a phenomenon caused by the light of the star power. The light was blazing, and wherever it passed, the air seemed to be scorched. The heat boiled, and the heat waves rolled. It was a pity that people who had experienced the damage caused by the soul of the Golden Crow were not afraid of this little bit of damage. It could not even be considered as a scratch. Tang Zheng stepped forward and directly arrived outside of Granny Lee's stroll. He sneered and said, "Is this all you've got? The warrior transformed by Ji Wuxiang is only SOSO, and you still want to fight against me? You're really wishful thinking." How could Granny Lee admit defeat? She stared hatefully at Tang Zheng and said, "Chiyu, so what if I fight against you? The strength of the warrior transformed by the High Lord is not something you can guess." "Is that so? Strong? Hee, I didn't see the slightest clue. If the warrior was strong, why was it that I wiped out all of them, and no one was able to compete with me?" Tang Zheng snorted and asked with a sneer. Granny Lee's cheeks flushed red. This was a clean slap to her face, causing her to lose face. She angrily said, "You used despicable means to track me down and harm them." "Despicable means?" Tang Zheng laughed. "You really think too highly of yourself. I didn't need to track you down to find them." "How did you find them?" Granny Lee asked incredulously. The implication was that the stronghold was hidden so well, so how could it be found by Tang Zheng? "Because I know your secret, your weakness," Tang Zheng said firmly. Granny Lee's face changed slightly, and her heart was nervous. This was their secret. So how did he know about their weakness? If she knew that this was just Tang Zheng's speculation, she would definitely be taken aback. Of course, she would not admit it. She deliberately said in a disdainful tone, "Chiyu, keep dreaming. You still want to find out our secret." Tang Zheng smiled gently and said, "Do you really think so? Hee. Then I'll reveal the riddle now." "Humph, what riddle?" "Don't think too highly of yourself." Granny Lee snorted. Chapter 1413. When Granny Lee heard this, she was dumbfounded. Her eyes were as big as a cow's. She stammered, How did you know? Tang Zheng laughed. Is it that hard to see? Granny Lee was startled. Only then did she realize who she was talking to. He was Chi Yu, a legendary figure, so it was not impossible for him to see through this. This was indeed the shortcoming of a cultivator. If anyone could absorb star force from the ninth heaven, their cultivation speed would be greatly improved. Granny Lee had also asked Ji Wuxiang this question. Could a cultivator directly absorb star force from the ninth heaven? Ji Wuxiang did not answer directly. Granny Lee understood and did not ask again, but as smart as she was, she immediately thought of another possibility. The High Lord might have a way to overcome this shortcoming, or rather, this shortcoming was deliberately created by him, because in this way, cultivators could not escape from his control. However, Granny Lee did not dare to voice her guess, and could only bury it deep in her heart. Seeing Granny Lee speechless, Tang Zheng sneered. This is what you think you can rely on. It's like walking with only one leg. You can't go far. Humph, you want to beat us? You're delusional. After a slight pause, he continued, Today I'll let you know what a gap is as wide as a chasm. Granny Lee was shocked and quickly raised her head, staring at the other party in horror. In a flash, Tang Zheng had already rushed towards her, his big hand grabbing at Granny Lee, and a gust of wind swept her up. Granny Lee did not struggle, but circulated her cultivation, causing star force to flow out of her body and spread out like a sharp knife, tearing the wind apart. Whoosh! She waved her hand, and the walking stick flew up as well. It kept spinning, and in an instant, the wind was torn to pieces. There was already a crack on the crutch, and after such a fierce attack, with a crack, spiderweb-like cracks spread all over the crutch. Granny Lee stared blankly as her weapon was completely destroyed, turning into pieces that drifted away with the wind. At the same time, Tang Zheng took a big stride forward, completely closing the distance between them and arriving in front of her. His big hand reached out to grab Granny Lee. Granny Lee retreated in a panic as a sharp star force appeared in front of her. This star force was like a sharp blade, attacking Tang Zheng with an unstoppable momentum. The corners of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up in a mysterious smile. A black hole suddenly appeared in his palm, disintegrating the fierce star power in an instant, and a huge attractive force pulled Granny Lee in. Granny Lee's face suddenly changed. She stared at the black hole in front of her in horror and shouted, You are not Chi Yu. This black hole was too familiar. It was like a symbol, and as long as one saw it, they would never forget it. This was the sky-swallowing technique that Tang Zheng was famous for, a technique that the devil race had once dismissed as useless. However, in the hands of Tang Zheng, it was the sky-swallowing technique. You are Tang Zheng. Granny Lee screamed in disbelief. Tang Zheng smiled indifferently. It's too late for you to know now. Since he had openly displayed the sky-swallowing technique, he naturally had nothing to fear. Or rather, he had no intention of letting Granny Lee go. Granny Lee also thought of this, and felt a chill in her heart, but then she suddenly realized, so it was you who pretended to be Chi Yu and stirred up trouble in Dianan. You wanted to provoke the conflict between the Lord and Chi Yu so that they would kill each other, so that you could sit back and reap the benefits. Tang Zheng did not deny it, and said, You guessed right, but even if I didn't provoke them, they are still mortal enemies. I just poured a little oil on the fire. You are so ruthless, Granny Lee said through gritted teeth. Ruthless? Tang Zheng laughed. Granny Lee, are you qualified to say this? You are 1,000 times more ruthless than me. Granny Lee was startled and speechless, but her heart was in her throat. She secretly made up her mind that she must pass this message to the Lord, lest he be used. But in the current situation, how could she pass the message back? Her only hope was to survive. Delay. Once the Lord found out something was wrong, he would definitely come to rescue her. At that time, Tang Zheng would definitely not be the Lord's opponent. She could even capture him directly and turn the tables. Seeing her expression fluctuating and silent, Tang Zheng jokingly said, "You want to delay time and wait for reinforcements, right?" You. Granny Li was stunned. She was immediately seen through by Tang Zheng. Seeing her reaction, Tang Zheng became more and more certain of his guess and said, "Unfortunately, you made the wrong decision. Granny Li, today is the day you die. As for why you want to die, I don't need to repeat the reason." Granny Li certainly knew the reason. There was no need to say more. The two sides were mortal enemies. If you don't die, I will live. If you kill me, the Lord will definitely take revenge. Whether it is you or the people around you, they will all die and be buried with me. Granny Li threatened. Tang Zheng laughed. "Unfortunately, Ji Wuxiang doesn't know that I killed you." You. Granny Li was speechless again. Tang Zheng was right. Ji Wuxiang would only think that Qiyu killed her and put the blame on Qiyu. You really are a good schemer. Granny Li gnashed her teeth. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "You flatter me. I learned this from you." Granny Li was speechless. Both sides were scheming against each other, but this time Tang Zheng won. Don't try to delay time. Just go in peace. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed coldly as he stared fiercely at Granny Li. With a thought, the suction force of the black hole increased greatly. Granny Li struggled desperately, but it was useless. Although she was a martial emperor, there was still a world of difference between her and Tang Zheng's Mahayana realm. Ah! She screamed in despair as she was sucked into Tang Zheng's hand by the black hole. In a flash, Tang Zheng's big hand clasped her head. "You're going to use the soul-searching technique." Granny Li screamed. She obviously had a good understanding of Tang Zheng's divine powers and recognized it at a glance. She knew what kind of divine powers the soul-searching technique was. All her secrets would be exposed. Not only would she die, but even her last remaining value would be squeezed out. She was unwilling, but there was nothing she could do. She wanted to commit suicide, but she was completely under Tang Zheng's control. She couldn't even kill herself. Tang Zheng knew that these people were desperados. At the last moment, they were willing to sacrifice themselves in order to keep their secrets. So, he quickly used the soul-searching technique. Now that his power had increased greatly, the power of the soul-searching technique naturally rose as well. Ah! She screamed at the top of her lungs. Her eyes turned white, and she became demented. With her cultivation as a martial emperor, if Tang Zheng used the soul-searching technique in the past, although he could find the information he wanted, he would never be able to make her demented. But now it was different. The after-effects of the soul-searching technique had increased with his cultivation. In a flash, Tang Zheng released his hand. His eyes were shining, and the corners of his mouth raised into a satisfied smile. "Hee, Ji Wuxiang, your secret is hidden very deeply. So many warriors don't know about it, but you didn't hide it from Granny Li. Now I know your secret." Tang Zheng muttered to himself. If Ji Wuxiang heard this, he would definitely regret it. The most important secret should be known by himself. He couldn't even tell his closest subordinates. Otherwise, there would be a risk of it being leaked. But there was no medicine for regret in the world. His secret had been leaked. It turns out to be so easy to transform warriors. No wonder he could transform so many warriors in such a short time. However, Ji Wuxiang is really smart. He deliberately left a shortcoming so that he can firmly control the warriors under him. They have to rely on him to absorb the power of the stars. In fact, this shortcoming was deliberately created by Ji Wuxiang. It can be completely overcome. It turned out that as long as a warrior was transformed, they could directly absorb the power of the stars from the ninth heaven. There was no need to absorb it indirectly. But this was obviously not in line with Ji Wuxiang's demands and goals. Tang Zheng couldn't help but sigh. Ji Wuxiang was really good at controlling others. Ji Wuxiang, I'll let you experience a saying. Success is due to the same person. Failure is also due to the same person. You relied on the power of the stars to win over so many warriors, so I will also use the power of the stars to counter you. I will make you betray your friends and family and become a loner. Tang Zheng suddenly had a brainwave and thought of a countermeasure. He lowered his head and glanced at Granny Li. She had become a useless person. Except for the power of the stars, she had no other use. Tang Zheng naturally wouldn't waste it. With a thought, the power of the stars was continuously absorbed into his body. Then, the black hole flashed, and Granny Li disappeared, turning into a wisp of vitality in the heavenly realm. He would not leave Granny Li's body to Ji Wuxiang. How smart was Ji Wuxiang? If he saw some clues, then everything he had done would be in vain. He quietly retreated and didn't act again. Although there were other strongholds in Dianan, he was not allowed to act anymore. Even Granny Li noticed the abnormality. Ji Wuxiang would soon be aware of this. To avoid exposing his true identity, he had to hide. Now it was time to watch a good show. Ji Wuxiang did know that there was an accident in the stronghold. He immediately guessed that it was Qiyu. He immediately contacted Granny Li, but couldn't get in touch with her. He was shocked, and his face was gloomy. He had realized the seriousness of the problem. Then, several pieces of news gathered in his hands. They were all about the stronghold being uprooted. Even the corpses were not left behind. He, who was usually unable to control his emotions, also felt the anger in his heart soar. He realized that the severity of the matter was far beyond his imagination. Qiyu, you've gone too far. His eyes were cold, as if he wanted to eat someone. Whoosh! His figure flashed like a gust of wind blowing through Dianan. Wherever he passed, no one could see his whereabouts. He went from one stronghold to another, but didn't find any clues. Finally, he stopped in front of a stronghold. His eyes were like torches as he said coldly, "Granny Li went missing here. No, she's dead." He didn't believe that Granny Li had a chance to survive in Qiyu's hands. Like the other warriors, she must have died a long time ago. If other warriors died, he wouldn't be shocked. They were all pawns that could be replaced by others. Chapter 14:15. Ji Wuxiang closed his eyes and seemed to be asleep, but every trace of change could not escape his discerning eyes. Imperceptibly, he understood everything in his heart. Closing his eyes was better than opening thousands of eyes. In Dianan, every person and every object, whether living or dead, formed a vague shadow in his mind. Chapter 14:17. Ji Wuxiang looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief, completely unable to understand why the damage caused by the power of the stars was so small. Could it be that Qiyu had some kind of divine ability that could restrain the power of the stars? He stared at Qiyu with a burning gaze, unable to see through it for a long time. Tang Zheng had already seen some clues from Ji Wuxiang's reaction. Ji Wuxiang was a smart person and could easily see through the problem. In order to avoid being exposed, Tang Zheng hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. Ji Wuxiang, my 9-Li tribe has thousands of divine abilities. If you want to deal with me with this little trick of yours, you're really thinking too simply. Ji Wuxiang's eyes narrowed slightly like slits. What kind of divine ability can break through the power of the stars? Tang Zheng pretended to be profound as he laughed, but did not reply. Ji Wuxiang understood. that he could not find an answer. Then he could only continue to attack. The power of the celestial chess was far more than this. With a thought, the power of the stars also changed and gathered together, finally condensing into a large blade. Whoosh! The blade fiercely fell down with an imposing aura, causing people's hearts to tremble in fear. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank slightly as he stared straight at the large blade. He could clearly feel the power of the large blade condensed from starlight. Where the blade pointed, it was invincible. Tang Zheng hurriedly urged his power. His hands were suffused with a dazzling light, like two balls of flames. Crack! As the large blade fell, Tang Zheng's hands tightly clamped the blade. Two rays of light were like dazzling sparks, splashing in all directions. These specks of light floated in this space like stars twinkling in the vast Milky Way. Ji Wuxiang's eyes flashed with a hint of fierceness as he shouted, "Cut the galaxy!" The light of the large blade increased greatly. In an instant, it turned into a large blade and suddenly sank down. The galaxy flowed. Tang Zheng's hands subconsciously loosened, and the blade fell from between his hands, landing on the galaxy. The river of stars was torn apart and collapsed. The starlight shot in all directions like arrows. Tang Zheng was injured by the sharp blade, and blood flowed out. However, before the blood could drip down from Tang Zheng's palm, it froze. Tang Zheng's expression was solemn. He pushed his hand forward, and a wall of wind appeared in front of him. Bang, bang, bang. The starlight was blocked by the wind wall, and the sound of collision was continuous, like a series of thunderclaps. Kacha! Cracks appeared on the wind wall, and it quickly collapsed. The starry broadsword's momentum was like a rainbow as it quickly followed up and attacked Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had nowhere to run, but he couldn't unleash any of his powerful divine abilities. Seeing that Dadao was already in front of him, Tang Zheng stared at Dadao with burning eyes. The saber was condensed from the power of the stars, and its might was immense. Facing it, ordinary people would have no other choice but to face it head-on. However, Tang Zheng was not an ordinary person. He understood too much about the power of the stars. Therefore, his eyes suddenly lit up as he discovered something unusual about the broadsword. No one else would notice this. However, it was discovered by Tang Zheng with his sharp senses. The starry broadsword relied on the heavenly chess to continuously provide energy. If the heavenly chess was disrupted and the energy was out of balance, then the starry broadsword would collapse on itself, and it would not be a threat at all. Could Tang Zheng cause the heavenly chess to be disrupted? Of course, because he understood the heavenly chess too well. However, there was one thing he had to be careful of, and that was to not arouse Ji Wuxiang's vigilance. Ji Wuxiang knew very well that in this world, other than himself, only Tang Zheng understood the heavenly chess the most. He was the one who had taught Tang Zheng that in the past. With Tang Zheng's intelligence, Ji Wuxiang was sure that he would definitely have a new understanding. As for how much understanding Tang Zheng had of the heavenly chess, he couldn't guess at all. Coincidentally, Tang Zheng also knew this, so he planned to use this to catch his opponent off guard and catch him off guard. However, at the same time, he had to avoid letting Ji Wuxiang see through his understanding of the heavenly chess. This way, he wouldn't invite trouble and let Ji Wuxiang guess his true identity. With a thought, a slight change occurred to the heavenly chess, but this change was very slight. Ji Wuxiang's entire attention was focused on Tang Zheng, so he didn't even notice this change. In fact, this was the result of Ji Wuxiang's absolute confidence. He definitely didn't believe that you could control the power of the stars. When he saw the starry broadsword falling towards Tang Zheng, he smiled confidently, thinking that Tang Zheng was already at the end of his rope. Tang Zheng didn't move. His eyes were calm, and everywhere he looked, there was only the sharp edge of the blade. However, in private, a slight change occurred to the heavenly chess, and this change was subtle. In a short while, it developed from a small part to the overall situation. Now's the time. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He put his palms together, and a long sword made of essential qi suddenly appeared in his hands. Whoosh! The long sword slashed down. The power of this sword was beyond imagination, and it went straight for the starry broadsword. Ji Wuxiang narrowed his eyes slightly. He didn't expect that at the last moment, when the outcome was already decided, his opponent would still want to go all out. This was simply an idiot's dream. That was what Ji Wuxiang thought. You overestimate yourself. He curled his lips. Under the effect of the heavenly chess, the power of the starry broadsword had been raised to the extreme, and the pressure was very frightening. If it were an ordinary cultivator or martial artist, they would have been scared to the ground by the pressure of the starry broadsword. Tang Zheng could naturally see through Ji Wuxiang's thoughts, but he was secretly delighted because he was also fully prepared. Bang! The broadsword and the starry broadsword clashed. Ji Wuxiang's expression suddenly froze. Because the scene he expected didn't happen, his smile froze as if he had been petrified, and he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Both the broadsword and the sword shattered. The sword shattered. This was what Ji Wuxiang expected. But how could his starry broadsword shatter? The starry broadsword's aura and pressure were far more powerful than that of the long sword. So how could both be destroyed and shatter? Tang Zheng was overjoyed. This counterattack was really fast and accurate, and it was too successful. The slight change in the heavenly chess was almost negligible, but it successfully took effect when the long sword hit the starry broadsword, causing the heavenly chess to be disrupted, and the power of the stars was out of balance. That starry broadsword naturally felt a decisive threat, and it was destroyed together with the long sword. When he saw Ji Wuxiang's reaction, he knew that he didn't notice anything strange. This step was too dangerous, but he still didn't have the next step. This step could ensure that Ji Wuxiang wouldn't suspect that there was a problem with the heavenly chess. Tang Zheng puffed, and a trace of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth, as if he had been hit by a heavy bomb. He flew backwards, broke a pillar, and made a big hole in the wall. He fell out of the room in a sorry state. He did this on purpose, so that he could create an illusion, so that Ji Wuxiang would think that Qi Yu had used all his strength and fought with all his might to shatter the starry broadsword, and not that the starry broadsword was destroyed because of some other reason. This would allow Ji Wuxiang to maintain his usual confidence and pride, and make him look down on Qi Yu. This way, he would seek revenge on Qi Yu in the future. Otherwise, if Qi Yu broke his heavenly chess so easily, he wouldn't have the guts to seek revenge on Qi Yu. This chain of events, like inviting the enemy into a trap, could completely dispel Ji Wuxiang's doubts. At this point, it was futile to continue searching. He frowned and racked his brains. Finally, he had a flash of inspiration. He guessed something. This is the border of southern Yunnan, which is also the border of the area controlled by the heavenly chess. Could it be that the power of the heavenly chess has weakened? That's why Qi Yu was able to take advantage of it. That must be it. That's the only way to explain everything. Qi Yu, you're really cunning. You managed to slip away right under my nose. However, on second thought, even a famous person like Qi Yu could only run away when facing him. This was enough to show how powerful he was. He was truly superior to Qi Yu. Qi Yu killed so many of my men. Do you think you can escape just by running away? Humph! How is that possible? Ji Wuxiang's expression turned cold and gloomy. A debt of blood must be paid in blood. Qi Yu, just you wait. I'll visit your headquarters very soon and make you pay in blood. Ji Wuxiang had made up his mind. he would go to Qi Yu's headquarters and give him a fatal blow. Tang Zheng had slipped away. He had safely left southern Yunnan. He let out a long sigh of relief and calmed down. He looked in the direction of southern Yunnan from afar and muttered to himself, "Ji Wuxiang, you won't suspect anything now. You'll definitely attack Qi Yu. Then I'll just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight." Southern Yunnan was full of mystery at night, especially in Tang Zheng's eyes. Those chess games that were faintly discernible in the air had infinite power. He had also experienced the power of the heavenly chess. He wanted to study it more deeply. As long as he understood more about the heavenly chess, he would have more advantages in future battles. He could even decide the outcome of the battle. In addition, he already knew Ji Wuxiang's biggest secret. Once he returned, he could let the martial artists around him also have the power of the stars. Moreover, it was not the weak power of Ji Wuxiang's subordinates. They could truly absorb the power of the stars freely. Whether it was Yi Dingdang or Wu, they would all have great improvements, and their strength would increase greatly. He suppressed the excitement in his heart, summoned the somersault cloud, and soared into the sky. Xiao Bai came out of the Sumeru world again and stood beside Tang Zheng. He said bitterly, "Master, I couldn't help you on this trip to southern Yunnan." Tang Zheng laughed and patted his head. "What's there to be depressed about? There are still many battles. When the time comes, you will have the chance to show off." Xiao Bai nodded. The somersault cloud carried them and flew towards the capital. However, before they could go too far, a figure swept past from afar. Its speed was faster than a plane. However, Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai's pupils shrank. They recognized that it was a person. His speed was extremely fast. He must be an expert. Both sides looked at each other. He originally thought that he could avoid the Dragon Slayer, but he didn't expect that he would be so naive. Hope was beautiful, but reality was cruel. The Dragon Slayer was much more powerful than he had imagined. No wonder so many seniors of the Dragon clan had died at his hands. He had wanted to avenge his clansmen, but now it seemed like it was just wishful thinking. Could it be that I can't escape the fate of the other Dragon Clan seniors? Am I going to follow in their footsteps and have my dragon soul absorbed by the Dragon Slayer? The Golden Dragon was in despair. He activated his energy again and prepared to fight for the last time. Suddenly, a cloud flew into its line of sight. The speed of this cloud was extremely fast, and it was very rare. More importantly, it was very familiar with this cloud. Somersault Cloud. He called out the cloud's name with one sentence. That means he's here. The Golden Dragon was both excited and worried. He left the capital to avoid bringing trouble to Tang Zheng. Now, Tang Zheng had taken the initiative to sacrifice himself to save him. His original plan was ruined. Of course, he didn't blame Tang Zheng. Instead, he was touched. The strength of the Dragon Slayer was something that Tang Zheng knew as well as it, but Tang Zheng could overcome the threat of death and save it without hesitation. In the eyes of the Golden Dragon, the somersault cloud was getting closer and closer to the Dragon Slayer, but the Dragon Slayer didn't seem to notice. A streak of cold light shot out from the somersault cloud like a sharp arrow, accurately attacking the Dragon Slayer. Finally, a cold light appeared in the Dragon Slayer's eyes. He didn't even turn his head and attacked with a backhand move. At the last moment, he finally noticed something. He didn't have time to turn around, so he took the opportunity to meet this sharp attack. However, when the two hands came into contact, the heaven-devouring book was immediately activated. A black hole appeared in Tang Zheng's palm. A huge suction force was like a rope coiling around and binding the Dragon Slayer tightly. The Dragon Slayer's face was stern. Ever since he came to this world, He had never met anyone who dared to provoke him like this. He was going to give the other party a good beating and let him know the consequences of offending him. He took the opportunity to attack with a backhand move. Light bloomed in his hand and hit the black hole. Boom! There was a loud sound that made people's hearts tremble. The black hole vibrated violently. Tang Zheng had no choice but to appear from the somersault cloud, and the dragon slayer quickly turned around. Their eyes met, and his pupils shrank. Naturally, he recognized this enemy that he had fought before. He snorted coldly in his heart and made up his mind not to give the other party a third chance. Tang Zheng also saw the dragon slayer's expression, and his heart trembled. It seemed that the dragon slayer was going to use his trump card. The dragon slayer had indeed used one of his trump cards. Its power was peerless. He was confident that victory was in his hands. Be careful! The golden dragon had already appeared in the clouds. The shrunken dragon's body was coiled up, and its two huge dragon eyes stared worriedly at Tang Zheng. It couldn't help but cry out, "Humph! I didn't expect you two to be together. You actually managed to get away with it in front of me," the dragon slayer said with annoyance. At the same time, power burst forth from his palm. The light in his palm became even more blazing, like a red sun. The black hole shook violently as if it would collapse at any time. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. He was shocked by the dragon slayer's counterattack, but he wasn't afraid. Retreating would only lead to death. Not only him, but even the golden dragon wouldn't be able to escape, since enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. And the old enemy had reunited. Then he would let go of everything and release his strongest power. Tang Zheng activated the sky-devouring technique. The black light expanded, and the black hole immediately stabilized. A vast amount of energy was sucked into the black hole, and this energy gathered in the heaven realm. Absorption. This was the successful counterattack that Tang Zheng had used all his strength. Moreover, it was very effective. The dragon slayer's mind was sharp, and his perception was top-notch. He immediately realized that his power was being sucked into the black hole. How could he not understand what was going on? He stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes and roared, "You still want to absorb my power? Dream on! Break!" As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon slayer's palm shone brightly. Its power far exceeded that of the others. Most importantly, the majestic energy rushed toward the black hole. Boom! The black hole shook violently again, and the frequency of the shaking became higher and higher. It seemed that it would disappear at any time. "I just got home today, and I'll be back to normal tomorrow. To read the latest novel, please visit the website." "Master, I'll deal with him." Xiao Bai let out a low roar and soared into the air. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, he had already vanished from his original location and appeared in front of the dragon slayer. His hands formed into claws, and his fingernails were so sharp that they were even scarier than steel knives. Puff! The air was torn apart by him as he grabbed at the dragon slayer. Seeing this, the dragon slayer had no choice but to change the attack trajectory of the dragon whip. He had never seen Xiao Bai like this before, so naturally he did not recognize Xiao Bai. However, he was an expert after all. He could tell at a glance that Xiao Bai was an expert and could not be underestimated. Therefore, with a shake of the dragon whip, it changed its path and faced Xiao Bai head-on. Xiao Bai's eyes lit up, and it was as if his eyeballs were burning with raging flames. With an angry roar, he grabbed at the dragon slayer with his large hand. Pung! The dragon whip fiercely struck Xiao Bai's palm, but it was firmly grabbed by Xiao Bai and could not move at all. Although the dragon slayer was mentally prepared, he was still shocked when he saw this scene. He never thought that Xiao Bai's strength would be so high that he could even block his dragon whip. "Who are you?" the dragon slayer coldly asked. Ever since he came to this world, the people he met were all weaker than him. Therefore, his pride and arrogance rose, and he did not put the people of this world in his eyes at all. Xiao Bai jokingly said, "If you dare to harm my master, you must first pass through me. As for who I am standing in front of you. Can't you see for yourself?" These words left the dragon slayer speechless. What made him even more shocked was that Xiao Bai had called Tang Zheng master. He was very clear on what the word master meant. Such a powerful person actually called Tang Zheng master. He could not help but look deeply at Tang Zheng as if he wanted to see through his mysteries. Xiao Bai dispelled the dragon whip's attack, and Tang Zheng was overjoyed. He finally did not have to give up the sky-swallowing technique, and he did his best to activate it. In that instant, black light erupted, and the originally wavering light immediately burned fiercely, completely enveloping the dragon slayer's palm. It was as if he would be completely sucked into the black hole in the next second. The dragon slayer's expression suddenly changed, and he loudly shouted, "Not good!" He only defended against Xiao Bai, but did not defend against the next attack of the sky-swallowing technique. This caused him to fall into an extremely difficult situation. He felt a powerful force devouring his arm. His arm seemed to be dissolving, and it seemed as if it would not be long before it completely turned into nothingness. This was something that had never happened before. So how could he not be shocked? He knew that he could not delay any longer. Otherwise, that black hole would definitely cause fatal damage to him. As a result, he loudly roared, and his feet tapped the air, flying backwards. His palm released a brilliant light as he broke free of the black hole's shackles. But at the same time, Xiao Bai's power was displayed. The flames in his palm rose into the air and followed the dragon whip, spreading towards the dragon slayer at lightning speed. The dragon slayer was greatly shocked and hurriedly activated the dragon whip. The dragon whip fiercely trembled like a rolling dragon. Xiao Bai was forced into helplessness and was also pulled along, spinning like a top. "Be careful, Xiao Bai!" Tang Zheng shouted in shock. The dragon whip was spinning too quickly, and its face was burning with raging flames. Therefore, this scene was like a fire dragon in a whirlwind. It was extremely terrifying. After hearing Tang Zheng's words, Xiao Bai also knew that it was in a difficult situation. Although it had grabbed the dragon whip, it could not control it. This level of magic treasure was extremely powerful, and it was not something that an outsider could control at will. As a result, Xiao Bai had no choice but to let go. The dragon whip broke free and immediately flew backwards like a fish in water. It retreated far away together with the dragon slayer. The golden dragon watched from the side with fear. It never dreamed that the dragon slayer, who was almost invincible in its eyes, would actually take the initiative to retreat under the joint forces of Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai. This was simply a fantasy. Tang Zheng heaved a huge sigh of relief. Xiao Bai's strength was beyond his expectations. If the two of them worked together, their chances of winning would greatly increase. At least, that was the case for the current situation. Seeing the dragon slayer pull apart the distance between the two of them, Tang Zheng did not blindly chase after him. Instead, he stared at the dragon slayer with a face as heavy as water and said, "Dragon slayer, didn't you run away this time? You still dare to appear now. Are you really not afraid of death?" The dragon slayer looked at Tang Zheng, then at the golden dragon, and said bitterly, "You brat, you lied to me time and time again. You swore that you had nothing to do with the dragon clan. Now, it seems that it was all a lie. Your relationship is actually so deep. I spent so much effort to find the whereabouts of the dragon clan. It turns out that they were by my side. Tang Zheng denied his relationship with the Dragon Clan this time because he was forced to do so. Seeing that the Dragon Slayer had seen through him, although he was mentally prepared, his heart still tightened. The Dragon Clan elder of the Langya Pavilion had repeatedly warned that he must not let the Dragon Clan see through his identity, otherwise he would be in danger. That Dragon Clan elder had once said that it was precisely because Tang Zheng's dragon soul had the ability to conceal itself that it could not be easily detected by the Dragon Clan. That was why he could catch the Dragon Slayer off guard. Now that his identity had been seen through, it was only a matter of time before the news reached the ears of all the Dragon Slayers. The advantage that Tang Zheng had gained would be completely gone. Tang Zheng did not even need to think to know how serious the consequences of this would be. He stared at the Dragon Slayer with a burning gaze and made a decision in his heart. He absolutely could not let the Dragon Slayer leave. Otherwise, his greatest secret and reliance would be completely gone. This would attract even more Dragon Slayers to come to this world. After all, a hidden Dragon Clan member was too attractive to the Dragon Slayers. They would definitely be impatient to use Tang Zheng as an experimental specimen to conduct detailed research on in order to figure out his secrets and prevent the other Dragon Clan members from copying him and hiding their tracks. Seeing Tang Zheng's reaction, the Dragon Slayer's complacency rose spontaneously and became more and more intense. He said, "We searched high and low for you, only to find you by chance. We Dragon Slayers will be very interested in you. We will definitely find out how you avoided our Dragon Clan's detection." Tang Zheng said that it was indeed so. He had not guessed wrongly at all. Immediately, the Dragon Slayer became even more determined. He did not say a word, and immediately gave a look to Xiao Bai and the Golden Dragon. Both sides immediately understood and blocked the Dragon Slayer's path. The three sides formed a triangle and firmly controlled the Dragon Slayer, constantly guarding against him from escaping. Seeing this scene, the Dragon Slayer felt more anger than danger. These people were actually preventing him from escaping. Was there a mistake? He was a famous Dragon Slayer. How could he escape without fighting? As for this time, it was completely an accident. The Dragon Slayer defended himself in his heart. If Tang Zheng heard his thoughts, he would definitely roll his eyes. Wouldn't the Dragon Slayer run away? How naive. If you want to deal with me, you have to weigh your own strength first. Now, not only will I pull out your tendons and devour your souls, I will also make you all die without a burial ground. The Dragon Slayer pointed at Tang Zheng and the others and said resolutely. Tang Zheng did not refute. He coldly snorted and roared, "Xiao Bai, Golden Dragon, let's work together. We must kill him here." Kill. The Golden Dragon was stunned. It seemed that he did not expect the Dragon Slayer to be killed. Tang Zheng lightly glanced at him and understood his thoughts. He decisively said, "Of course we'll kill him. What he did to the Dragon Clan, we will return tens of thousands of times." Chapter 14:21. When the Dragon Slayer saw the golden light blossoming from Tang Zheng's body, he was both shocked and shocked. He originally thought that Tang Zheng had a close relationship with the dragon race, but now it seemed that he had greatly underestimated Tang Zheng. Not only did this person have a close relationship with the dragon race, but more importantly, he was a member of the dragon race. He suddenly remembered that he had once sensed a vague dragon, but in the next moment, this feeling disappeared without a trace. He had thought that it was an illusion. Now, it seemed that it was not an illusion at all. This dragon race had a mysterious way of hiding their dragon soul. The truth was right in front of him and spoke louder than words. The Dragon Slayer stared at Tang Zheng with shining eyes and said, "Kill me? What a fantasy! If I capture you alive, You will definitely be the most valuable dragon I have ever captured in my life. Ha ha ha. The dragon slayer's eyes really shone, and the corners of his mouth cracked into a sinister smile. Hearing the dragon slayer's bold words, Xiao Bai was the first to step out and refuted with righteous indignation, "If you want to harm my master, you will have to step over my dead body first." The dragon slayer's pupils shrank. He narrowed his eyes and stared straight at Xiao Bai. Clearly, he did not believe him. The golden dragon understood Xiao Bai better than the dragon slayer. When it saw him transform into a human, it was extremely shocked. When it heard Xiao Bai's loyal oath, it could not help but look at Tang Zheng. Xiao Bai had transformed into a human, so his strength must have increased by another level. It would be very beneficial for this battle. The golden dragon's originally despairing heart was once again filled with a trace of hope. While speaking, Tang Zheng rushed in front of the dragon slayer. Xiao Bai also rushed in front of the dragon slayer with surging killing intent. The dragon slayer's large hand trembled and waved the dragon whip. In an instant, the dragon whip flickered with golden light and lashed out at Tang Zheng's golden body. Force met force. Bang! Tang Zheng's arm was numb. He had resisted the dragon whip once, but his expression did not change. He quickly rushed forward and arrived in front of the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer cried out in surprise. His dragon whip curled up, and like a nimble and furious dragon, he quickly went up against Tang Zheng. Another muffled sound rang out. Tang Zheng and the dragon slayer both retreated backwards at the same time. Tang Zheng was secretly shocked. The dragon slayer was indeed powerful. However, after continuously attacking, he finally gained something. He had already roughly determined the cultivation level of the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer's cultivation was higher than his, but it was not ridiculously high. He was probably around the 6th stage of the Mahayana realm. Chapter 14:22. Xiao Bai still did not loosen his grip. Instead, he continued to incite the flames. With a boom, the flames soared into the sky and flew along the dragon whip to the dragon slayer's arm. At the same time, the spear flower also caused a flower of blood to bloom on Xiao Bai's body. Xiao Bai groaned, but did not loosen his grip. It was risking both of them being injured to give the dragon slayer a fierce blow. Chapter 14:23. Pop! A weed broke out from the ground, exuding green vitality. It was like a stone that landed on the mirror-like surface of a lake. In an instant, waves rippled out. Chapter 14:24. What was this wondrous gain? It was actually enough to make Tang Zheng go wild with joy. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily curled up. He muttered to himself, "Dragon Slayer, your divine dragon swings its tail as only Esozo. I'll let you experience the feeling of the divine dragon swings, its tail too." As his voice fell, a golden light extended from Tang Zheng's spine. With a whoosh, the golden light overflowed and soared into the sky. The dragon slayer was dumbfounded and subconsciously cried out in surprise, staring straight at the golden light swaying in midair. This was not a simple golden light, but a dragon tail. Tang Zheng could also transform into a dragon tail because he had cultivated the dragon god mantra and possessed the dragon soul. The dragon tail that he transformed into was a real dragon tail, and not the half-real, half-fake kind of dragon slayer. The dragon slayer stared at the dragon tail with burning eyes and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He had expended a lot of energy to conjure the dragon tail, but this brat could actually do it as well, and everything that he had displayed was above him. This was really a case of comparing oneself to others. He really wanted to roar to the sky. Tang Zheng's eyes also emitted a golden light, staring at the dragon slayer like a tiger watching its prey. He roared, "Eat my attack!" The power of the divine dragon swings. Its tail was not inferior to that of the golden dragon at all. In fact, it was even more powerful than the golden dragon. The dragon slayer sucked in a breath of cold air. He had no choice but to fight with all his might. With a whoosh, the golden light flew toward the dragon slayer. Everywhere it passed, the air was dyed golden. It was as if there was only this golden color left between heaven and earth. In the past, Tang Zheng definitely could not use this move, but looking at the dragon slayer, he suddenly realized that he could use this kind of divine ability too. It was just that he was blinded and did not think of it at all. He was inspired and naturally used this move of the divine dragon swings, its tail, which was extremely powerful. The dragon slayer actually had the intention to retreat, but there was nowhere to retreat. He could only fight back. Without the dragon whip, he had no choice but to use the divine dragon swings, its tail. Bang! Just like before, the two golden dragon tails collided. Golden light splattered everywhere, and the wind howled. Kacha! With a shattering sound, golden light burst forth. The dragon slayer's dragon tail had completely disappeared, leaving only Tang Zheng's dragon tail swinging in the air majestically. Without a doubt, the two dragon tails collided. Tang Zheng was victorious, and the dragon slayer was defeated. The dragon slayer retreated awkwardly. If he was at his peak, he definitely wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Unfortunately, not only did he have to resist the flames, but he also had to worry about the golden dragon and Xiao Bai's surprise attack, so he couldn't focus on dealing with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng also knew this, so he did not think that he had completely won. Dragon slayers definitely had more means to protect themselves. Thus, Tang Zheng stepped forward bravely and attacked the dragon slayer like a storm. The dragon slayer had no way out. He roared, "Brat, don't go too far." Tang Zheng was not moved at all. He said jokingly, "When you were dealing with the dragon race, why didn't you think about going too far? You dragon slayers actually wanted to exterminate the entire dragon race for your own selfish interests. This kind of ambition is intolerable, and you still have the nerve to say that I'm going too far." The dragon slayer's face turned red, and he was speechless. Tang Zheng followed up with another attack. "The day you exterminated the dragon race, you should have known that you would also have such a day." The dragon slayer snorted coldly and said, "I, the dragon slayer, am incomparably powerful. Do you think you can fight against me with your own strength? Humph, you overestimate yourself. I'm not the only dragon slayer. There are tens of thousands of them. You offended me and became my enemy, which means you became the enemy of all the dragon slayers." The dragon slayer's threat was very serious, causing Tang Zheng to subconsciously frown. An idea came to his mind. The dragon slayer was indeed not alone. Although he had only seen this one so far, he had to be on guard against the arrival of other dragon slayers. It was precisely because of this that he could not let this dragon slayer have the chance to go back and report. Otherwise, it would definitely attract even more dragon slayers. At that time, Tang Zheng could only passively take a beating. This world would really reach the end of the world. Don't flatter yourself. Your flattery might be useful against 3-year-old children, but against us, you're not just a little bit lacking. Tang Zheng said sarcastically. The dragon slayer's face alternated between red and white. He was incomparably anxious. "I admit that the other dragon slayers are very powerful. As for how high your position is among the dragon slayers, I'm not interested. But there's one thing I can tell you clearly. Today, you definitely want to leave this place." Tang Zheng said solemnly, "You really want to kill me? Now that things have come to this, could it be that you think you still have a chance to survive? Tang Zheng asked jokingly. The dragon slayer was speechless. From Tang Zheng's tone and gaze, he had already determined that Tang Zheng's killing intent was resolute. Killing me won't be that easy. The dragon slayer shouted. He used the same trick again, wanting to escape without a trace. However, whoosh, a figure blocked the dragon slayer's path. However, it was not Tang Zheng but Xiaobai. Xiaobai glared at him like a tiger watching its prey. He stretched out his hand and clawed again. His sharp claws pierced towards the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer had been resisting the power of the flames with difficulty. However, Xiaobai's flames were too powerful. He had no way to completely extinguish them. Just now, he had already extinguished a bit of the flames, but it had consumed most of his power. Therefore, he could only watch helplessly as the claws pierced towards him. He could only retreat. He did not even have the courage to fight. With a pincer attack from the front and back, Tang Zheng did not let him go. With a thought, the divine dragon swung its tail. Another golden dragon tail swept down and attacked the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer let out a sharp cry and shouted, "No!" Boom! The dragon tail swept the dragon slayer's body. He was like a kite with a broken string as he flew backwards into the distance. However, Tang Zheng and the other two were like shadows. They did not give the dragon slayer any chance to leave their sight. Before the dragon slayer had even landed on the ground, the three of them had already arrived in front of him. They were ready to launch another fatal attack. The dragon slayer was almost in despair. However, he did not completely give up. From the corner of his eyes, he looked into the distance. A towering mountain peak towered into the clouds. It was like a giant. The dragon slayer recognized this mountain peak. He was pleasantly surprised. His feet were greased as he shuttled through the crowd. Last time, he suffered a great loss on Mount Buzhou. He did not know that it was the divine power of Mount Buzhou. Otherwise, he would not have thought of coming here even if he was beaten to death. In addition, the dragon slayer had his own plans. He had used up too much of his power. He was no longer able to fight against the three of them. He did not want to die. Therefore, he had been searching for a way to escape. Finally, when he saw Mount Buzhou, he immediately fell into deep thought. Then he was wild with joy. The dragon slayer had seen the power of this world's powerhouses. He did not dare to underestimate them anymore. He wanted to leave this world. Space jumping was the most effective method. And to do this, he had to use Mount Buzhou, because the dragon slayer had used up too much of his power in consecutive battles. He could not even open the space door. He only had one chapter today. He was not in good spirits. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1425. At that time, no matter how powerful the enemy was, they would not be able to do anything to him. In the future, he would lead the army of dragon slayers to this world and kill all the enemies. No, not only would he kill the enemies, but he would also destroy this world, just like how he destroyed the home of the dragon clan. Chapter 1426. Tang Zheng's eyes were overflowing with radiance as he exclaimed inwardly. The dragon slayer's power was too powerful. It was like a huge treasure. He continuously absorbed energy, and his meridians gradually filled up like a person who had eaten his fill. Chapter 1427. Suddenly, Yuan Ying's fingers moved. It was very weak, but it did not escape Tang Zheng's attention. What's going on? Tang Zheng was shocked. He stared straight at Yuan Ying to confirm that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. Yuan Ying's fingers were indeed moving. Yuan Ying seemed to have sensed him. She raised her head and stared at him with her bright eyes. Chapter 14:28. Tang Zheng's attention could not help but be deeply attracted. He was not someone who had not seen the world. Not only had he seen Xiao Bai open an interspatial door, but he had also seen the Dragon Slayer open one earlier. Nonetheless, it was completely different this time because the young fellow had opened the interspatial door himself. Previously, he had asked someone else to do it, but this time he had done it himself. Chapter 14:29. He first straightened out his cultivation. He was already a top-notch master at the 4th stage of the Mahayana realm. He had to carefully plan every step to avoid making mistakes. First of all, he already knew the secret of transforming into a martial artist. Naturally, he would not miss such a great opportunity. Chapter 14:30. However, this time it was completely different. The 3 of them actually did not feel much of anything. This was all thanks to the heavenly chess. If it were not for the fact that the heavenly chess possessed such heaven-defying power, the project of transforming their meridians would have directly led to their deaths, and everything would have been for naught. Tang Zheng already understood this, so he continued to incessantly channel the power of the stars, rapidly transforming the meridians of the 3 people. Chapter 14:31. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes at him and said, "You brat, how would you understand my feelings?" Tang Zheng rolled his eyes speechlessly and teased, "Why are you so afraid of being photographed on the beach?" Tian Chanzi snorted and said, "Why would I be afraid of being photographed on the beach? Ridiculous. I, Tian Chanzi, have been leading the world for thousands of years. How could I be scared by a group of juniors?" Chapter 14:32. Mo Xie was the first to speak, asking expectantly, "Did Tian Chanzi agree?" He had always wanted to examine Tian Chanzi's body and see if the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was still in his body, but Tian Chanzi had flatly refused, so he could only wait. He had already become a loner and only had this sliver of hope. If he didn't wait, there was no other way. Tang Zheng knew Mo Xie's thoughts and said, "Tian Chanzi is still considering it. I have other matters to discuss with you." Mo Xie's face immediately revealed a disappointed expression. He made an "oh" sound and asked dully, "What is it?" Other than the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, he was no longer interested in anything else. "I want to forge a talisman. You are an expert in this field, so I hope to obtain your help." "Forge?" Mo Xie raised his head in shock and stared at him in disbelief. "Yes, I want to forge a treasure sword. The materials are all prepared, and everything is ready except for the east wind." Mo Xie laughed dryly. "I'm that east wind? What's so difficult about forging a treasure sword that you need my help with?" Forging talismans was a common thing for cultivators, but forging top-level talismans, such as holy tools, was not so easy. It was not something anyone could do. Tang Zheng could only patiently explain, "I want to forge a peerless godly sword." Peerless godly sword? Mo Xie was slightly startled, then he laughed loudly and snorted, "Peerless godly sword? You think you can forge a peerless godly sword just because you shout a slogan?" He had rich experience in forging and knew that a peerless godly sword could only be found by chance. For example, his Ganjiang sword was a peerless godly sword. But in order to forge the Ganjiang sword, he had prepared for a long time. Even the materials were all heavenly treasures and were not common goods. He did not believe that Tang Zheng could find materials comparable to the Ganjiang sword. Tang Zheng ignored the mockery in Mo Xie's words and said calmly, "Of course I'm not shouting a slogan. Don't master forgers like you always want to forge a peerless talisman? Now that the opportunity is in front of you, You don't want to give it a try. Could it be that you don't dare? Tang Zheng changed his mind at the last minute. Originally, he wanted to persuade Emosia with his emotions and reason so that he could ask Emosia for help. Now, it seemed that he was not interested in anything other than the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. Since that was the case, then he could only use other methods to move him. Provocation was a good method, and with Emosia's intelligence, he would definitely see through it. However, Tang Zheng would still do so because he believed that, for a master weapon refiner, the temptation of refining a peerless divine weapon was definitely not to be underestimated. As long as Emosia saw the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron, she would definitely be interested in helping him. When Emosia heard Tang Zheng's words, the corners of her mouth curled up in ridicule. She said, "You're underestimating me. Do you think this will work on me?" Tang Zheng didn't think much of it and said generously, "Whether it's useful or not depends on what I offer you." Seeing Tang Zheng so confident, Emosia's interest was instead piqued. She said, "I'd like to see what you can offer me." "Then why don't you come with me, and you'll know." Tang Zheng walked in a certain direction. Emosia hesitated for a moment before following. Not long after, Tang Zheng stopped in his tracks. In front of him was a huge sphere as black as ink. This seemingly ordinary black sphere was the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. Back then, it had absorbed Dizong of Goguryu's dark side and became like this. From the chains of the past to this huge sphere, the impurities had been completely refined and removed. What was left was the essence of the essence. Emosia was originally absent-minded and didn't think much of it. However, when she saw this huge black sphere, her eyes immediately straightened and were deeply attracted. "What is this?" Although she didn't recognize the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron, she had a pair of fiery eyes and could see that this was definitely not an ordinary item. Even the material she used to refine the Ganjiang sword was slightly inferior. Tang Zheng relaxed and smiled as if she already knew that she would take the bait. "This is the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron taken from the ghost realm." 9 Serenities' mysterious iron taken from the ghost realm. Emosia muttered to himself, deeply shocked. Although it was the first time she heard this name, the words "taken from the ghost realm" firmly attracted her. After a long time, her gaze reluctantly moved from the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron to Tang Zheng's face. Her expression changed continuously and was very interesting. "How did you find this 9 Serenities' mysterious iron?" Tang Zheng smiled indifferently and said, "You don't need to worry about that. I just want to know if you have the confidence to refine it into a divine weapon." "Of course I have confidence," Emosia said without hesitation. "You are doubting the skills and dignity of a master refiner." "Ha! Even you haven't seen the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron before, and you dare to boast like this?" Tang Zheng asked. "That's because you don't know my refining level. As long as you give me time, I will properly study the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. I will definitely be able to make it into a divine weapon," Emosia said confidently. "I will refine it now." "Now!" Emosia stared at him as if he was looking at an amateur and said, "You are too impatient. I don't even know the properties of the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. I don't even know what kind of true fire is needed to melt it. You telling me now is the biggest joke in the world." Tang Zheng was still very calm and said, "No matter what kind of true fire you use, you will not be able to melt it, because it is not something from the human world. True fire will naturally not be able to refine it. That's because your strength is too weak and the quality of your true fire is not good enough." Emosia said solemnly, not believing in Tang Zheng's ability. Tang Zheng did not argue and said, "Then you can give it a try." Mo Xia proudly turned his head and activated his power. He extended his palm, and a ball of flame jumped in his palm. This ball of flame also attracted Tang Zheng's attention. This ball of flame contained a great amount of power and was a ball of 6th grade true fire. This was the highest quality true fire. For a weapon refining master, this was the most important prerequisite. If one did not have a high-quality true fire, it would be impossible to refine a divine weapon. Mo Xia activated his true fire, and with a whoosh, the true fire flew out and accurately landed on top of the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. Then, the true fire turned into threads and covered the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron like a spider web. The big black ball was immediately covered with a layer of fire. It was dazzling and added a sense of mystery. Tang Zheng was firmly attracted. The weapon refining master's first move was extraordinary and was completely different from his normal refining methods. This time, seeing Mo Xia refine with my own eyes will be of great benefit to me. In the future, when I refine, I will definitely be able to refine even higher quality treasures. Tang Zheng was full of interest as he stared at this scene with shining eyes. Mo Xia proudly raised her head and purposely glanced at Tang Zheng from the corner of her eyes as she teasingly said, "Look carefully, this is true weapon forging. Your previous weapon forging was just child's play." Tang Zheng smiled, but did not say anything. He had an expression of watching a good show. Chapter 1433. The mysterious 9 nether iron under the roasting of the true fire reflected a strange light, but it did not melt. In fact, there was not even a trace of melting. Tang Zheng's mouth gradually hooked into a smile as he looked at Mo Xia with interest. Mo Xia's expression also had a subtle change. Previously, he had vowed that refining the mysterious 9 nether iron would be a piece of cake. But after a long time without any reaction, he finally realized that something was wrong. From the corner of his eyes, he caught a glimpse of Tang Zheng's expression, and his heart skipped a beat. He clenched his teeth and made up his mind. "I don't believe that I can't handle this mysterious 9 nether iron." He gathered his strength, the light of the true fire constantly flickering, determined to refine the mysterious 9 nether iron. After a long time, the mysterious 9 nether iron still did not have any reaction. His expression finally changed again and again, becoming very ugly and even a bit resentful, as if saying, "Why can't my true fire refine this big black ball?" Tang Zheng finally opened his mouth. "How is it? How much longer do you need me to wait?" Mo Xia raised his head and looked at him with a complicated expression, as if he was thinking about what to say. After a while, he said, "Why are you in such a hurry? I've only just started." Tang Zheng laughed dryly. "Huh, is that so? But so much time has already passed. You're taking too long to warm up." After a slight pause, he quickly changed the topic. "Don't waste your energy. You can't refine it." Mo Xia was clearly not convinced and rolled his eyes. For a master refiner, not being able to refine a raw material was the greatest shame. This mysterious 9 nether iron is not something that true fire can refine. Tang Zheng said decisively. Mo Xia said in disbelief. "Then if it can't be refined, what kind of peerless divine weapon are you going to use it to refine?" "Of course I have a way," Tang Zheng said mysteriously. "What way?" "You'll see in a moment." Tang Zheng suppressed Mo Xia's arrogance and no longer kept him in suspense. "Come with me. I'll let you see." Tang Zheng's thoughts moved, and the surrounding scenery quickly changed. In a flash, they had already left Sumeru Heavens and arrived in the secret room. When Li Xiaotian saw Mo Xia, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. Mo Xia's attention was not on Li Xiaotian, but on Tang Zheng. In Sumeru world, Tang Zheng was only a strand of divine sense. so she could not see anything. However, in the real world, Mo Xie immediately discovered the subtlety. He stared at Tang Zheng without blinking his eyes. His voice also rose by several decibels as he cried out involuntarily, How did your cultivation increase again? He was actually unable to see through Tang Zheng's cultivation. Without a doubt, this was a sign that his cultivation had increased. Back then, he could still see through Tang Zheng's cultivation, but in just a few short weeks, what exactly happened that made Tang Zheng's cultivation advance by leaps and bounds? Tang Zheng smiled, but did not say anything, pretending to be mysterious. Mo Xie knew that even if he asked, he would not get an answer, but his thoughts had completely changed. If it was before, he could still look down on Tang Zheng, but now he absolutely did not have the slightest bit of such thoughts. Tang Zheng did not use the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul to threaten him, and he could not threaten Tang Zheng at all, so his status was even lower. Of course, if the Yellow Emperor was resurrected, this situation would change. Mo Xie's gaze turned slightly, inadvertently falling on Li Xiaoyan's body, and his pupils once again widened. He blinked his eyes to confirm that he wasn't seeing things. He really couldn't see through her cultivation. He had never placed Li Xiaoyan in his eyes. After all, a small martial artist might be very powerful to an ordinary person. However, in his eyes, Li Xiaoyan was not much different from an ordinary person. Why couldn't he see through her? Wasn't she just a martial artist? He could not figure it out, no matter how much he thought about it, and his expression naturally did not look any better. Li Xiaoyan's mind was sharp. Her eyelids twitched, and she saw some clues in his heart, but she did not pay attention to his shock. Mo Xie looked at Li Xiaoyan, and then turned to look at Tang Zheng. These two juniors, he could not see through them. This was too strange. He really wanted to ask again, and get to the bottom of it. However, he swallowed the words back down. If he really got to the bottom of it, the other party might not tell the truth, and the one who would lose face would be him. When he thought of this, he forcibly suppressed his impulse, but it was difficult to conceal the stormy waves that surged in his heart. Tang Zheng also saw through his thoughts, and smiled without saying anything. In his heart, the more mysterious he was, the more intimidating he was, so he did not dare to act rashly. Mo Xie took a deep breath and changed the topic. Otherwise, his little heart might really break. Didn't you say that you can refine the mysterious underworld iron? How do you refine it? Tang Zheng did not directly answer, but said, There is still a soul in the mysterious underworld iron. This soul is extraordinary. Do you have the confidence to control it during the refining process and turn it into an artifact spirit? Soul? Mo Xie's eyes widened in curiosity, staring at the mysterious underworld iron in the secret room as if he could see through it. However, after carefully staring at it for a long time, he could not see where the soul was. In fact, he could not even sense it. For an artifact refining grandmaster, this was not a small blow. Fortunately, he had suffered several blows in a row just now and had become numb. He simply did not ask any more questions and let Tang Zheng continue. Tang Zheng laughed in his heart and continued, This soul is very strong. If you are not careful and let him escape from his bindings, not only you, even I will not be able to do anything to him. Furthermore, none of us here will be able to leave this place alive. Mo Xie's heart trembled. He knew that Tang Zheng did not have to deliberately lie to scare him. He really wanted to ask where Tang Zheng found such a fierce character. However, he did not ask, but sighed and said, If you use such a powerful soul as the artifact spirit of the sword, then how powerful will the artifact refining be? This will depend on the results of everyone's cooperation. Tang Zheng was also unable to give an answer. In fact, this was a risky move, but this risk was worth it. Mo Xie's heart was bewildered. After a long time, he finally said, "All right, I'll do it. I want to see what kind of peerless artifact refining will be." As an artifact refining grandmaster, witnessing or personally refining a peerless artifact refining was a huge temptation. Tang Zheng finally smiled, although he had already expected this result. Hearing it with his own ears, the stone in his heart finally fell to the ground. "Then we will begin now. You will witness the birth of a true peerless artifact refining," Tang Zheng said in an imposing manner, giving Li Xiaotian a look. Li Xiaotian nodded slightly, walked in front of the mysterious nine underworlds iron, stretched out his hands, and a ball of flame burned between his hands. Huh! Mo Xie looked curiously at this ball of ghost fire. With his eyesight, he immediately determined that this was not true fire. For a martial artist to be able to summon such a strange flame, it was very strange. Tang Zheng looked at Mo Xie and explained, "This is ghost fire. Only it can refine the mysterious nine underworlds iron." Ghost fire, isn't that also an item from the ghost realm? Mo Xie asked in surprise. Tang Zheng nodded. Mo Xie's heart became more and more shocked. How could an item from the ghost realm be used by a living person? This Li Xiaotian also hid many secrets. The younger generation will surpass us in time. While speaking, Li Xiaotian urged the ghost fire to wrap around the mysterious nine underworlds iron. The black light constantly flickered, and not long after, the mysterious nine underworlds iron was like melted candy, transforming from a solid state to a liquid state. After a while, the mysterious nine underworlds iron completely transformed into a liquid state, but it did not flow in all directions. Instead, it was still a big black ball. The liquid mysterious nine underworlds iron was constantly rotating, like a small snake circling in place. This scene deeply attracted the three people, and they stared at it with wide eyes. Shwa! Suddenly, a ray of light rushed out from the mysterious nine underworlds iron. The mysterious nine underworlds iron bulged, as if something was trying to rush out from the mysterious nine underworlds iron. Tang Zheng's heart trembled as he shouted, "Be careful!" His mouth muttered some words, and golden Sanskrit words flew out, condensing into a golden swastika character in the air, covering the mysterious nine underworlds iron. The bulge immediately subsided, disappearing little by little. It was the first time Mo Xie had seen such an amazing scene, and he was even more surprised by the Sanskrit words that Tang Zheng was muttering. The terrifying power contained in the golden swastika character made his heart beat faster. "That soul wants to rush out?" Mo Xie asked. He could tell at a glance. Tang Zheng nodded. "Yes, we must not let it rush out. Dizong of Goguryeo once said that the strength of the dark side would increase day by day, and it could not be trapped in the mysterious nine underworlds iron forever, so he could not help but worry about the possibility of the dark side rushing out." Mo Xie nodded thoughtfully. "No wonder. We must be very careful." He was not scared off, but instead became more interested. With such a powerful soul as the artifact spirit, the magic weapon refined would definitely be extraordinary. Creating such a peerless divine weapon from his own hands would be a very satisfying thing. The rest of the work will depend on the two of us. Tang Zheng stretched out his hand, and a furnace appeared in his palm. It quickly changed, and he gently threw it. The moment the furnace fell to the ground, it returned to its original appearance. The 9 revolving pill furnace, this was the furnace he used to refine weapons. Although there was a master refiner like Mo Xie, Tang Zheng would not just sit back and do nothing. With the two of them working together, he would be able to learn many things. Moreover, if Mo Xie was the only one refining, what if he tampered with it, and the refined weapon became Mo Xie's? Then wouldn't he have suffered a double loss? He definitely would not allow this to happen. Mo Xie looked at the 9 revolving pill furnace with contempt and said, "With this little furnace, you want to refine a peerless divine weapon, can't I?" Tang Zheng asked back. Mo Xie forcibly suppressed the word can't. From a professional point of view, it was not impossible. It was just a bit more troublesome. Mo Xie gave Tang Zheng a deep look, as if she was deep in thought. She immediately understood his intentions and knew that he was on guard against him. But he had no way to resist, so he coldly snorted and said, "Then let's begin." Tang Zheng activated the 9 revolving pill furnace, and the carvings of birds, fish, and insects on the outside seemed to come alive, swimming around. Chapter 1434. The mysterious 9 serenities iron flew into the 9 revolving pill furnace, and a burst of black light immediately shot up into the sky. A buzzing sound came from the furnace like a clap of thunder, causing people's hearts to be filled with fear. Mo Xie's eyes were bright and full of expression as he stared at the furnace. Under his gaze, thousands of changes were occurring within the furnace. The liquid, mysterious 9 serenities iron seemed to have a life of its own as it continuously rotated like the earth. Traces of ghost fire penetrated the mysterious 9 serenities iron, and not long after, it had already merged into the core area. Mo Xie personally witnessed the power of the ghost fire and was extremely shocked. Tang Zheng glanced at him and said, "Your main task is to find a way to merge that soul into my divine sword." Mo Xie recovered from his shock and looked up at him, urging, "Don't waste time." When Tang Zheng heard this, he silently circulated his energy. Just like before, when he was refining treasures, he quickly began to act. The liquid, mysterious 9 serenities iron was stretched out by the energy he released, little by little forming the shape of a sword. However, things were not that simple, and an unexpected change immediately occurred. The dark side of the Dizang of Goguryeo in the black sphere flared up like a malignant tumor, immediately blocking the mysterious 9 serenities iron, causing Tang Zheng to be unable to continue stretching it. Naturally, the divine sword would not be able to form. What do we do? Mo Xie was helpless and could only ask for help from Tang Zheng, looking at him with a burning gaze. Tang Zheng calmly smiled and casually said, "Leave it to me." He chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra, and a lotus flew out from his mouth. A lotus flower bloomed in his mouth. After Tang Zheng's cultivation increased, his comprehension of the Ksitigarbha Sutra also increased to another level. After chanting the Ksitigarbha Sutra, his reaction was also completely different. When he saw the golden light of the lotus flower, Mo Xie's heart trembled. He thought that this brat had too many tricks up his sleeve, and the power of this lotus flower could not be underestimated. He even more so did not dare to slight Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng naturally did not know that there was such an unexpected effect. He only wanted to use the Ksitigarbha Sutra to suppress the dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo. The lotus was more powerful than the individual Sanskrit words. It quickly suppressed the dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo, and the blocked area was slowly unblocked. Not long after, the 9 underworld mysterious iron was elongated, and the prototype of the divine sword had already taken shape. Mo Xie couldn't help but take a few more glances at Tang Zheng. He could clearly feel the power of that soul, but Tang Zheng's brilliant lotus flower was able to suppress it so easily. This skill was truly not ordinary. That being said, the process was far from simple. The dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo would definitely make a comeback. This was the consensus of all of them. Hiss! A sharp cry rang out. The dark side that had ceased all activities was struggling with all its might. This cry came from him. This voice seemed to have a soul-stirring charm, causing one's heart to sway. Mo Xie's frown deepened. He was too curious as to who this soul belonged to. A normal soul would not be so powerful. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. He urged Mo Xie, "Don't just look. Think of a way to fuse the soul with the sword." Mo Xie glanced at him. His hands formed a seal, and he muttered something. Although they were so close, Tang Zheng could not clearly hear what he was chanting. But it was definitely some kind of secret technique. Its power immediately manifested. A ray of light shot out from his hand and attached itself to the 9 underworld mysterious iron. It slowly seeped in. This ray of light could penetrate the 9 underworld mysterious iron. It was obvious how powerful it was. This is a bit interesting. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up as he stared at the 9 underworld mysterious iron, especially that ray of light. When the ray of light came into contact with the dark side of Dizong of Goguryeo, the dark side clearly rejected it and instantly repelled the ray of light. Hiss! Mo Xie sucked in a breath of cold air. He seemed to be shocked by the counterattack of the dark side. His eyes flickered and gradually became firm. He did not say a word. His expression was incomparably serious and even somewhat gloomy. Boom! The ray of light approached the dark side again. This time, it did not directly clash with the dark side. When it did not directly touch the dark side, the ray of light stopped and began to rotate on its own. In an instant, a small vortex of stars was formed. Although the 9 underworld mysterious iron was incomparably black, this ray of light was very dazzling, so Tang Zheng could clearly see everything. This vortex seemed to have magical power. The dark side was directly sucked into the black hole. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian looked at each other. There was some surprise in their eyes. They had seen the power of the dark side. They did not expect it to be unable to resist this vortex. What kind of magic did this vortex have? Mo Xie confidently curled up a mysterious smile. He thought to himself, "This is my exclusive refining technique. It is specially used to fuse souls and magic treasures. It is simply the nemesis of souls. How can it not be able to do anything to him?" Tang Zheng did not see the specific magic, but he knew that there was a glimmer of hope. Thus, he quickly calmed his mind and chanted the Ksiddhagarbha Sutra, continuing to suppress the dark side. Under the pressure from both sides, the dark side was immediately at a disadvantage. The bulge slowly disappeared. Under the contrast of Mo Xie's light, the dark side was visible to the naked eye. It was a small ball of strange light. It was like ink, but it was fundamentally different from the 9 underworld mysterious iron. As long as one looked carefully, they would be able to see the difference between the two. "Withdraw!" Suddenly, Mo Xie roared. His entire body emitted a faint light. The vortex rapidly rotated faster and faster, and the suction force became stronger and stronger. The dark side was sucked in with a whoosh, as if it was about to be completely sucked into the vortex. Suddenly, the dark side stopped, as if it had hit the brakes. It dangerously stopped beside the vortex, just a little bit more, and it would be sucked in. Mo Xie's expression immediately became gloomy. This result was outside of his expectations. In his original expectations, the dark side was successfully sucked into the vortex. Tang Zheng's expression was normal. After all, he was very clear about the power of the dark side. Any situation or accident would not be excessive. Mo Xie clenched his teeth. He was competing with the dark side. He had already boasted. If he gave up halfway and failed, that would be a great humiliation. He took a deep breath. The light on his body became more and more intense. It was as if he wanted to completely suck the dark side into the vortex in one go. This vortex was out of the ordinary. Once the dark side was sucked in, it would completely fuse with the magic tool. This was because this was the most crucial point in refining. This vortex was the bridge between the soul and the magic tool. How dare you refine me and make me the tool spirit? A hysterical and bone-chilling voice suddenly rang out. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. This was the voice of the dark side of Dizong, of Goguryeo. He was forced to the final juncture and had no choice but to speak. He was imprisoned by the 9 underworld mysterious iron and suppressed by the Ksitigarbha Sutra. He had to bear the double pressure. Under this kind of situation, he was still able to speak. Apart from his profound cultivation, he had also used up a large portion of his strength. This was his last chance to speak. If he did not succeed, he would never have the chance to speak again. The dark side was very clear about this, so he had no choice but to do this. This sound shocked Emosia, and he subconsciously relaxed his guard. The dark side saw the opportunity and quickly retreated. Stop! Seeing this, Tang Zheng hurriedly shouted to stop. If the dark side really escaped, it would be a big problem. Li Xiaotian was also very clear about this. He hurriedly shouted, "Quickly stop him!" Mo Xia finally came back to his senses and asked loudly, "Who is he?" "I am the Dizong of Goguryeo. If you act so recklessly, you will suffer a calamity and suffer my monstrous anger." The dark side continued to scare people. Mo Xia's expression changed again and again. It was already extremely ugly. Who is the Dizong of Goguryeo? He had never heard of this name before. But just from the situation at the scene, he could already tell that the Dizong of Goguryeo was not an ordinary person. "You actually don't know who I am?" The dark side was very angry. In this world, there was actually someone who did not know his great name. Tang Zheng was also stunned for a moment, and then he came to a realization. It was not strange that Mo Xia did not know, because he was a person from tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, the Dizong of Goguryeo might not have appeared. Even if he appeared, the understanding between the two worlds was very little. Mo Xia's heart palpitated, but he was not frightened. His eyes became firm, and he said sternly, "So what if you are the Dizong of Goguryeo? If I, Mo Xia, want to refine a magic treasure, no one can stop me." Whoosh! He stretched out his finger and pointed at the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. Blood flew out from the tip of his finger. It was incomparably red and fell on the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. Immediately, a line of blood appeared on the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. It kept changing and finally turned into a blood talisman. The blood talisman attached to the vortex and disappeared in a flash. The vortex's light increased greatly, and there was a trace of blood light in it. "What did you do?" The dark side screamed, but it was useless. With a whoosh, he flew toward the vortex and no longer had the strength to resist. The screams became more and more intense, echoing in the secret room as if they could pierce people's eardrums. Li Xiaotian subconsciously covered his ears with both hands. Tang Zheng frowned and used his qi to dissolve all of this. Mo Xia's heart was in his throat. This was a battle that concerned his reputation. If he lost, then he would not have the face to say that he knew how to refine weapons. He would not even have the courage to continue refining weapons. Seeing the dark side approaching the vortex step by step, his heart almost jumped out of his chest. Tang Zheng was a smart person and immediately guessed the clues. This was a critical moment, and success or failure depended on this. His breathing quickened, and his gaze was firmly attracted to this scene. "Break! What are you looking at? Hurry up and form the sword." Mo Xia urged Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng felt as if he had just awoken from a dream, as this was not the time to watch a show. He hurriedly activated his inner energy and controlled the 9 revolving pill furnace. Bit by bit, he used his energy on the 9 revolving pill furnace, refining the 9 serenities' mysterious iron step by step. There was no doubt that the refining process this time was more difficult than any of the previous times. It was more significant, and he comprehended more things. When he saw the sword form, the joy in his heart was like a bomb, exploding and merging into his every cell. He was incomparably happy. Chapter 1435. After the long sword was formed, only the weapon spirit was left. If the weapon spirit was formed, then the soul must be integrated into the sword body. Dizong of Goguryu's dark side had been attracted to the edge of the whirlpool. The whirlpool was getting faster and faster, and the dark side had no way to escape. I hate. The dark side dragged out the last word. It could no longer struggle and was sucked into the whirlpool. Chapter 1436. When the divine weapon was completed, there was a sound in his mind because the weapon spirit and sword spirit had appeared. He could clearly feel the existence of the weapon spirit, and that lively voice clearly entered his ears. This voice was still Dizong of Goguryu's voice, but it was less gloomy and more lively. The resounding sword cry calmed down. "Master!" The sword spirit respectfully called out. Tang Zheng was in a trance. Dizong of Goguryo actually called him master, although it was the dark side of Dizong of Goguryo, but it was also a part of Dizong of Goguryo. He took a deep breath, and once again focused his attention on the dense qi. The sharp sword qi and light gradually dissipated, leaving behind a dense fog. Wong. Another strange sound came out from the dense qi. This was not the sword cry, but another sound. 9 revolving pill furnace. Tang Zheng secretly exclaimed in his heart as he saw through the true identity of this voice. The divine sword had been completed, and the 9 revolving pill furnace had also been affected, soaring to the sky, directly leveling up. This was all due to the divine sword. The refining process would also receive feedback. If a peerless divine weapon was refined, then the user would benefit greatly and even advance by leaps and bounds. This was a process that complemented each other. The materials for a peerless divine weapon were naturally not ordinary goods. When refining, the furnace would also absorb the spiritual energy and energy of these materials. But the 9 revolving pill furnace would benefit and advance to the next realm. This was something that could not be estimated. Wong wong. The sound of the 9 revolving pill furnace became more and more vigorous, like the sound of a mighty army's horn, and also like the sound of surging waves. Tang Zheng's heart also surged with waves as he stared at the dense qi, without blinking. Suddenly, a ray of light shot out, illuminating the large secret room, as if a burst of fresh fragrance assaulted his senses. Tang Zheng's head twitched. He knew that the puzzle was about to be solved. The dense qi gradually dissipated in all directions, but the multicolored light still filled the secret room. When the dense qi completely dissipated, the multicolored light shone on Tang Zheng, adding a lot of mystery to him. The 9 revolving alchemy furnace slowly rotated, gradually slowing down. The birds, beasts, flowers, plants, fish, and insects seemed to be on the verge of coming out of the furnace. Tang Zheng stared at the 9 revolving alchemy furnace. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he exclaimed, "The 9 revolving alchemy furnace has become a heaven-grade magic treasure." It was once a heaven-grade transcendent artifact, but it was destroyed later on, and its grade dropped too much. Could it be that it had now recovered its original appearance and actually advanced to become a heaven-grade transcendent artifact? Tang Zheng was pleasantly surprised as he stared at the 9 revolving pill furnace with anticipation. However, a voice interrupted his thoughts. "This is a sacred artifact." Sacred weapon? Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment. looking at the source of the voice. It was actually Mo Xie. With his fiery eyes and rich experience, he was able to see through the mystery with a single sentence. The 9 revolving alchemy furnace was originally not a heaven-grade transcendent artifact. If that was the case, then wouldn't it be in a much better condition than before? Then it would be able to refine even more powerful transcendent artifacts. This was not the least bit inferior to an offensive transcendent artifact. In fact, it might even be better. As for what grade of transcendent artifact the 9 revolving alchemy furnace could refine, it was still unknown. Since it was a sacred artifact, then what about its transcendent artifact spirit? Tang Zheng quickly circulated his qi, but he did not discover the transcendent artifact spirit. He immediately frowned and circulated his qi. He had to find out what was going on. But in the end, he gave up. This was because he did not feel the transcendent artifact spirit. Aside from the 9 revolving alchemy furnaces' qi and quality being higher than before, there was nothing special about it. He turned his head to look at Mo Xie and directly asked, "Why can't I feel its transcendent artifact spirit percent 3F? Mo Xie gave a meaningful smile and said, "This is the unordinary part of transcendent artifacts. Let me ask you first, what do you think is the difference between transcendent artifacts and other transcendent artifacts?" Tang Zheng tilted his head and looked at him suspiciously. After a while, he muttered to himself, "Between the two, besides their different uses, what else is different?" Seeing that Tang Zheng did not hit the nail on the head, Mo Xie proudly said, "I thought you knew everything, but it seems like you are only a layman when it comes to transcendent artifacts." Tang Zheng blushed with shame. Transcendent artifacts were all taught to him by Tian Chanzi. The other part was comprehended by him himself. This was equivalent to an unorthodox method. There was no systematic learning or training. He could not help but admit that Mo Xie was worthy of being called a transcendent artifact master. From Tang Zheng's level, he was able to deduce that he was a layman. Although this sentence was not pleasant to hear, it was the genuine truth. He did not know much about transcendent artifacts. Many aspects were taken for granted. There was no systematic knowledge or learning. He was not ashamed to ask, and humbly asked for advice. "In your opinion, what is the difference between the two?" Mo Xie smiled, but did not speak. Seeing that Tang Zheng was indeed humbly asking for advice, he mysteriously said after a while, "Of course there is a difference. Normally, when a transcendent artifact reaches the transcendent artifact level, the transcendent artifact spirit will automatically jump out. Therefore, there is no need to look for the transcendent artifact spirit. It will be easy to find the transcendent artifact spirit, such as your sword spirit." Tang Zheng slightly nodded. He was very clear about this point, but there must be some inside mystery that he did not know. As expected, Mo Xie changed the topic and said, "However, transcendent artifacts are completely different from ordinary transcendent artifacts. When it reaches the transcendent artifact level, its transcendent artifact spirit will not appear on its own. The transcendent artifact spirit will not appear on its own." Tang Zheng's eyes widened in astonishment. This was the first time he had heard of such a theory. Mo Xie did not care about his reaction. Instead, he smiled and pointed at the 9 revolving pill furnace and said, "You see the vivid and lifelike carvings on its walls?" Tang Zheng nodded. Of course he saw it. It was as if it was coming to life. Even a blind person could see it. Only, what did this have to do with them? He really could not figure it out. He could only ask, "What is going on?" Mo Xie mysteriously said, "The artifact spirit of the refining treasure is hidden in this mural. The refining process of a refining treasure is extraordinary, and the birds and beasts in this mural are not that simple. Many of them are real souls that have entered the 9 revolving alchemy furnace and were refined into this shape. Real souls of birds and beasts. Tang Zheng was shocked. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. He had always thought that these were just lifeless carvings. He never thought that there would be such a bizarre inside story. Your transcendent artifact spirit is hidden in one of the souls. If you want to find it, you must understand these souls well. Only then will you be able to find the transcendent artifact spirit. Mo Xie said, "Find the transcendent artifact spirit from all these souls?" Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He thought that he had succeeded, and the other matters were not worth mentioning. He never thought that there would be such a complicated matter. Then how would he find it? Chapter 1437. When Mo Xie heard Tang Zheng's question and saw his anxious appearance, he lightly said, "This is something I can't help with. The 9 revolving pill furnace is your artifact, and only you understand it the best. Finding the artifact spirit from these spirits is your job, and only you can do it." Tang Zheng shook his head and looked at him deeply, not wasting his energy to ask. Mo Xie's attitude was already very clear. No matter how he asked, there would be no result, so there was no need to waste his breath. His eyes moved from the outside of the 9 revolving pill furnace to the inside. He immediately locked onto an item that was emitting a sharp aura. A sword was silently floating in the middle of the cauldron, emitting a mysterious luster. It also had an irresistible aura. His gaze was firmly attracted to her, and he couldn't take his eyes off of her at all. Mo Xie and Li Xiaoyan's eyes were also attracted to it. After a long time, Mo Xie exclaimed, "It really is a peerless divine sword." If he made such a claim, then it was even more obvious that this divine weapon was extraordinary. Li Xiaotian smiled brilliantly. He was even happier than if he had obtained a divine weapon. He happily looked at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng suppressed the excitement in his heart and stretched out his hand. When his hand reached above the 9 revolving pill furnace, the godly general began to tremble nonstop, and the sword hum became even louder and louder, like thunder. "Come!" Tang Zheng roared, and his 5 fingers grasped the air. With a sound, the divine sword seemed to have a reaction and flew into his palm. The moment the divine sword fell into his palm, he felt as if his flesh and blood were connected. He and the sword seemed to have become one, man and sword as one. Mo Xie and Li Xiaotian stared at him. Seeing his expression change, Li Xiaotian hurriedly asked with concern, "How is it?" Mo Xie was very experienced and asked with great interest, "Do you have a very wonderful feeling that you have never had with other magic treasures?" Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and nodded. "How did you know?" "Ha, I'm a master blacksmith." "Of course I know." Mo Xie said meaningfully, his gaze turning deep. "Back then, when I forged the Ganjiang sword, I had the same feeling. This feeling of being connected to one's bones can only be felt by magic treasures refined with one's own blood." When the answer was revealed, Tang Zheng suddenly realized that it was because of his efforts. It is precisely because of this that the power of magic treasures is even greater. Of course, if a normal person wants to use their heart's blood to refine a magic treasure, that is only a fool's dream. Only a true master refiner can do this. Mo Xie said with pride. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes. Wasn't that a compliment? Mo Xie wasn't embarrassed at all and continued to speak. "This magic treasure of yours has fused with your blood. Aside from you, no one else can use it. This is the uniqueness of a magic treasure refined with one's own blood. Only I can use it." Tang Zheng was shocked by this news. If that was the case, then he wouldn't have to worry about the magic treasure being stolen by others. The War Soul sword being taken away by Qi you had always made Tang Zheng brooding. Now that he didn't have to worry about this problem. Of course, it was a blessing. Mo Xie stared straight at Tang Zheng and said, "That is indeed the case. Isn't happiness coming too suddenly?" Tang Zheng took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. He said, "That is indeed the case. Then you have to remember that it was me who urged this matter. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have been able to forge a peerless divine weapon with such powerful materials. Instead, you would have destroyed it." Mo Xie bluntly reminded. Tang Zheng looked at him thoughtfully and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, I will naturally remember this. As for your request, I also know I will persuade Tian Chanzi to agree to your request. If this peerless divine weapon didn't have such an effect, he wouldn't have made this promise. After all, the two of them were originally opponents. But this divine weapon had exceeded his expectations. Mo Xie's role in it was undeniable, and he couldn't ignore it at all. He was a person who would repay a little bit of kindness with a drop of water. Mo Xie had indeed helped him a lot, so he would naturally repay Mo Xie. After Mo Xie heard these words, he was extremely excited. His eyes lit up, and he said with anticipation, "Then I will wait for your good news. I hope you will not forget what you said today." He was very clear that his hopes were all placed on Tang Zheng. If not for his help, Tian Chanzi would definitely not agree to his request. Thus, he worked so hard to refine the divine weapon for Tang Zheng. Furthermore, he even answered his questions and pointed out the key points. Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't seem to be lying, Mo Xie was overjoyed and said, "Now you can name your divine weapon." Name? Tang Zheng stared blankly for a moment. He couldn't help but laugh. He had almost forgotten such an important process. Divine weapons were the same as people. Refining a divine weapon was equivalent to being born. Giving a command was equivalent to giving a name to a person. This name would be its code name in the future and would accompany it for life. A good name would resound in Ding Dang. It would be enough to intimidate the enemy and shake the world. Thus, he couldn't be careless about naming. His expression became serious. His gaze was like water as he looked at the divine sword. Although the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron was completely black, the divine weapon forged was not completely black. Instead, there was a sparkling light flowing around it, making it even more mysterious. Li Xiaotian looked at him nervously and advised, "You don't have to rush this matter." Tang Zheng shook his head. He didn't comment. He stared at the divine sword and thought, "This divine sword is made from the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. The weapon spirit is the dark side of Dizong of Goguryeo. It is the result of the combination of the two. Why don't I name it Hidden Mysterious Sword? Hidden Mysterious Sword." He repeated it 3 times in his heart. The more he listened, the better it sounded. His eyes couldn't help but light up. He gradually made a decision and said loudly, "From now on, it will be called Hidden Mysterious Sword." Hidden Mysterious Sword. Mo Xie and Li Xiaotian frowned slightly. Immediately, Li Xiaotian relaxed his brows. He obviously understood the meaning of the name. She pondered for a moment and nodded happily. "This name is not bad. It has a profound meaning." Mo Xie curled his lips. He didn't agree. But seeing that Tang Zheng had already made up his mind, he naturally wouldn't raise any objections. After all, it wasn't his sword. Tang Zheng gently stroked the divine sword and whispered, "From now on, your name will be Hidden Mysterious Sword." "Yes, Master. Thank you, Master, for bestowing this name." The sword spirit replied. It buzzed and trembled. The sword didn't stop humming. Rays of light surged from the sword body. It was overflowing with light and was incomparably sharp. It made people not dare to look at it. Tang Zheng felt the same way. He could clearly feel the joy of the hidden mysterious sword. He raised the hidden mysterious sword up high and lightly slashed. Whoosh! A ray of sword chi broke through the air. It was about to hit the wall of the secret room. With this force, the wall would collapse immediately. The secret room wouldn't be safe. But what was surprising was that the moment the sword chi was about to touch the wall, it disappeared. It was as if it had never appeared. Good sword. Mo Xie couldn't help but praise loudly. He was a sword expert. He could see the clues. Don't look at how the sword chi didn't destroy the wall. It seemed to be at the end of the line. However, in reality, it was Tang Zheng who controlled the hidden mysterious sword to the point of perfection. It was wonderful to the point of perfection. That was why he could do this. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1438. Hearing Mo Xie praise the hidden mysterious sword as a good sword, Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Thank you. The hidden mysterious sword is indeed a rarely seen good sword." Mo Xie faintly sighed and said, "As a person who is obsessed with swordsmanship, I have to say, I am very jealous of you for having such a peerless sword. I will take your words as a compliment." Tang Zheng said with a smile. His mood was very good. His finger lightly flicked the hidden mysterious sword. A melodious sound of collision entered the ear. "Hidden mysterious sword. From now on, you and I will fight side by side. Any strong enemy will be defeated under your 3-foot-long sword." Tang Zheng said to the sword spirit. The sword spirit was awe-inspiring. With a fierce aura said, "Yes, master." Tang Zheng, congratulations. Li Xiaotian sincerely congratulated. Tang Zheng tenderly looked at her and slightly nodded. "Thank you." Tang Zheng held the sword with one hand, proudly standing, his heart surging with a strong desire and impulse to fight. He really wanted to find someone to fight for 300 rounds. Only then would he not disappoint the birth of the peerless sword. This impulse became stronger and stronger, difficult to suppress. His gaze unconsciously fell on Mo Xie. Mo Xie saw a bit of coldness in his eyes from the flames of battle, unconsciously took a step back, and cautiously asked, "What do you want to do?" Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile, "You will fight with me." "You want me to fight with you?" Mo Xie pointed at his nose, feeling incomparably absurd. There was actually someone who took the initiative to ask him, the Yellow Emperor's #1 general, to fight with him. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the shock in Mo Xie's heart and said, "Yes, how about it?" Mo Xie hesitated for a moment, then immediately shook his head like a rattled drum and said, "I will not agree to your powerless request." Yes, this was a provocation to him. If it was before, he would definitely teach the opponent a lesson without hesitation, making the opponent pay the price for his crazy actions. But at this moment, he did not have any such thoughts. His only thought was to not fight with Tang Zheng. Not only was he unable to see through Tang Zheng's cultivation level, but the hidden mystic sword also made him timid, not daring to act rashly. Tang Zheng didn't expect Mo Xie to reject him so bluntly. He asked suspiciously, "Why not?" Mo Xie rolled her eyes at him and said, "I'm not a sparring partner." Tang Zheng was neither angry nor anxious. He asked calmly, "Are you sure you don't want to fight me? I'm afraid that Tian Chanzi won't agree to your request." As soon as the 3 words Tian Chanzi came out, Mo Xie's nerves immediately tensed up. Huffing and puffing, she said, "Are you threatening me?" "You can think of it that way." Tang Zheng shrugged and did not deny it. Mo Xie was so angry that she almost stomped her feet. Flustered and exasperated, she said, "Didn't you just promise me to persuade Tian Chanzi?" "Yes, I will persuade him, but that doesn't mean I won't raise any other opinions." Tang Zheng added. That one sentence poked at Mo Xie's weak spot. He panted like an ox and came back to his senses after a while. Gnashing his teeth, he said, "You win." Li Xiaotian looked at the two and couldn't help but laugh. He felt even more proud of his beloved. Not long ago, if Tang Zheng had said that, Mo Xie would definitely not have been lenient and would have killed him. Now, he no longer dared to fight with Tang Zheng. The earth-shaking changes in this short period of time had already explained everything. Tang Zheng was too strong, enough to make Mo Xie fearful. "Then you make your move." Mo Xie took a stance and fiercely glared at Tang Zheng. He looked as if he had nothing left to live for. Tang Zheng raised the hidden mystic sword up high. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A few slashes were sent out, but they were not aimed at Mo Xie. Instead, the sword light flew to several corners of the room. The sword light disappeared, and the atmosphere in the room underwent a subtle change. Mo Xie's pupils suddenly constricted. She looked around and furrowed her brows. She seemed to be deep in thought. Finally, she said meaningfully, "You laid down a formation to protect this secret room?" Tang Zheng did not hide his praise. "Smart. You saw through the mystery with a single glance." Now that his power had greatly increased and he had the hidden sword technique, he was able to set up a simple formation with ease. This secret room seemed to have become a paradise. The outside world couldn't detect the situation inside the secret room at all. Li Xiaotian looked left and right. He also saw a bit of mystery, but he did not see it as clearly as Mo Xie. Mo Xie's face was as calm as water. He took a step forward and walked towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng did not move. Like a statue, he stared at Mo Xie as he walked over. With every step Mo Xie took, his aura rose. In just a few steps, his aura soared to the sky. In the end, he was like a sharp sword. He did not have a sword in his hand, but he was a sword. He could cut hair with a single blow. He was incomparably fierce. Tang Zheng was still very calm. It was precisely this calmness that gave people a great pressure. He wasn't bluffing, but he was confident in himself. Mo Xie was very clear on this point. Therefore, when he took the last step, his aura had accumulated to the peak. "Kill!" A low roar burst out from the depths of Mo Xie's throat. It was filled with a feeling of endless power. Once the word "kill" came out, an earth-shattering sword chi was emitted from Mo Xie's body. In an instant, it filled this large space. He was like a sharp sword. He suddenly accelerated. One of his hands was like a sword. He chopped down fiercely. His aura was like a rainbow. Sword chi soared to the sky. This was an expert. He used his hand as a sword, but the power of his attack was not inferior to a real sword. Tang Zheng finally moved. He lifted the hidden, mysterious sword. His speed was very slow, as if he was moving in slow motion. On the contrary, Mo Xie's attack speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Tang Zheng. He was deeply afraid that Tang Zheng was preparing a big move. Therefore, he took the initiative to attack first. He wanted to give Tang Zheng a heavy blow. Seeing the rainbow-like sword chi approaching, Tang Zheng casually waved the hidden mysterious sword. This sword speed was also very slow. It was as if he did not eat his fill. But the moment the hidden mysterious sword chopped down, a mysterious power surged out from the hidden mysterious sword. Its aura could topple mountains and overturn seas. This is sword chi. Mo Xie immediately recognized it. He shouted loudly. The hidden mysterious sword's sword chi was not invisible. It was black. However, if one wanted to distinguish it with the naked eye, they would have to observe carefully. The hidden mysterious sword's sword chi was like a rainbow. The sword Qi collided with Mo Xie's sword Qi. There was no earth-shattering collision. There was not even a trace of a ripple. Mo Xie's sword Qi was like a clay ox entering the sea. It completely disappeared into the hidden mysterious sword's sword Qi. Chasm. Mo Xie immediately thought of this word. Other words were not enough to describe the difference between the two. Therefore, he used the word chasm. But Mo Xie did not retreat. There was no way to retreat. Tang Zheng did not only need this short exchange. He needed an even more perilous situation. Only then would Tang Zheng be able to fully display the power of the hidden, mysterious sword. Mo Xie had to do this. Therefore, he used his hand as a sword and rushed towards Tang Zheng, who was just inches away. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.